Okay, cool. All right. I think we're live, everybody. Welcome to the Carolinas Classic, where Alex and Andrea are playing round one. I'm going to pull up the chat on my phone. You guys can let me know if you can hear me. And we're just a couple of minutes into the round. We're just getting set up, but the games have just begun, so we haven't missed anything big. It's a great pleasure. I think for the second time to be commentating on the BotezLive channel, I'll be covering Alex and Andrea's games for you all. From I was going to say my hometown, but it's actually not my hometown. I'm about 25 minutes away from them right now. But obviously looking at the games remotely, looks like we're all good. Can you guys hear me? You guys should be able to see the boards. I'm about to input Andrea's current position. You can see Alex's position on the left. And I'll tell you their opponents in just a second. Let me input Andrea's game right now. So Andrea has just a couple of moves. Andrea has the white pieces against Arna, rated about 1700. So we had one d4 by Andrea. Her opponent played knight f6. Andrea played her standard Jabava London, and actually her opponent played this weird move c6, allowing Andrea to transition to kind of an interesting perk. Knight f3, bishop g4, bishop e2, nbd7, and this is the current position in Andrea's game. That's on the right side of your screen, and Andrea's camera is on the bottom right. Alex is on the bottom left. I think we're all good. We're all up to date, and we can start the fun. How are you guys? Hope you're enjoying your Friday. Hope you're settled in with a nice cup of coffee or tea or something stronger, because these are obviously classical OTB games. I don't know how much Alex and Andrea have talked about this tournament, but this is the annual Charlotte Open, which is now Carolinas Classic, that is, which I think is being held for the 6th straight year. I actually played last year. It's a pretty big tournament that's held at a big hotel with several sections. Alex and Andrea are competing in the under 2100 section. So in the first round, both of them are playing significantly lower rated opponents. But as all of you know, any of you who've watched these broadcasts in the past, you really can't make any conclusions, especially when their opponents are as young as they are. Looks like I can barely see them on my phone. Alex and Andrea are probably a collective like 30 years older than their opponents today. So these kids are dangerous. Let's see how Alex and Andrea are going to battle them today. So I'm kind of going to talk. I don't know how Hammer does it and how other commentators do it. I'm kind of going to toggle between the two games. If something interesting happens, I'm going to take. Y'all have questions about a particular position or about a particular move. I do have the chat open, so feel free to put it in the chat. It's a great pleasure to be here. I think we'll have a good time, and I'll try my best to keep you up to date on what's going on both boards. Okay, so let's take a look to see if Alex's game has any updates. Yes, Alex played a6, and hers is the more, I would say, the more concerning position early on, because Alexandra played a bit of a dubious move. So she played a French, which is her standard opening, and her opponent played the two knights variation, knight f3, knight c3. Of course, we're more used to white playing d4, and Alex responded with c5, which is a little bit dubious, and her opponent actually responded really, really well. Her opponent responded really well. E takes d5, e takes d5, bishop b5 check. That's definitely not on my end, but hopefully you can get that fixed. Yeah, so bishop b5 check. Okay, looks like it's okay now. And okay. Okay. Again, this is not on my end. Uh, yeah, bitrate. Okay. I don't know if you guys can still hear me or what's going on, but I don't know if you guys can hear me. Yeah, looks, I don't know. I don't know what we're doing. Okay. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Okay, sounds good. All right, looks like it's working. We have broken through the technological barrier. Yeah, thank you, Vila, for all your help. Looks like everything is working. Okay, we still haven't missed much. We're only about like 8 moves into the games. Um, Thank you everybody for your patience. Sorry, I think from my commentary experience, first round of anything, there's always some kinks to work out, but um, I don't think we've missed anything big. So let me check Alex's board right now and input. Yeah, bishop e6 is the current position. It's white to play. So let's start from Alex's position and work our way to Andrea's position. Yeah, their opponents are so bored. They're like, we've done this before. Yeah, welcome everybody. Now I can kind of welcome you properly. Um, if something stops working, let me know, but hopefully everything stays working. Awesome. Okay, so the position I'm more concerned about is definitely Alex's game. It looks like she's worse out of the opening. So just to pick up where I left off, White played the two knights variation. Her 3-year-old opponent played the two knights variation. Alex played c5, which is a little bit dubious. And white quickly gets this big lead in development. Three pieces out. Alex has none. So knight c6 is logical, but now d4. And I'm kidding. I don't think her opponent's actually 3 years old. I'm not very good at estimating ages. Maybe 10, 11, something like that. That was a joke. I was being sarcastic. More like 9 or 10, I would imagine. I could look up their birth date on FIDE probably. Yeah, so d4 was played. Alex responded with a6, trying to chase away the bishop. And yeah, and queen e2 check, bishop e6 is the current position on the board. Okay. So it's white to play. The bishop is hanging. And dude, my internet is 5 gig and I'm connected to Ethernet. So I think my internet's good. Okay, so bishop e6 is on the board. Yeah. I think it'll hopefully work itself out. There we go. Bishop takes c6, bc is probably going to happen, would be my guess. I don't see any other squares for white's bishop. Bishop d3 looks awkward. I'm hearing some moves. Yeah, bishop c6, bc is on the board. So they've traded on c6. And now, okay, so now I feel like the worst is probably behind Alex if she can get her kingside pieces out. I mean, knight g5, maybe she has to consider. But knight g5, probably black can just play c takes d4. So I actually think after a6, her opponent probably should have played bishop takes c6 straight away because queen e2 helped black develop a bishop. I think Alex is actually fine here. This is something like an equal position. So my guess is white will probably castle. Castle kingside, black will bring out the knight. And if Alex can complete her kingside development, she does have the bishop pair, which is a potential asset going into the middle game. Yeah, so a little bit of background for people just joining. Welcome, everybody. I'm GM Naroditsky, good friend of the Botez sisters. It's a great pleasure to be commentating round 1 of the Carolinas Classic. It's Friday evening here in Charlotte, 7 p.m. There's 1 game today, and then there's 2 games tomorrow, 2 games on Sunday. And this is a classical time control. So it's 2 hours or something like that for 40 moves. So we're in for the long haul. But obviously, some of these kids play really, really fast. So they're not necessarily going to use up all their clock. The tournament is USCF and FIDE rated. It's an annual tournament here in Charlotte, which has been happening, I think, for 6 years now. And Alex and Andrea are both playing down, so they're playing lower rated opponents in round 1. They really want to start off with a victory, but it's way too early to make any big conclusions. We're only like 8 moves in to both games. So let's check up on the other position. Alex's opponent taking her time. In the meantime, Andrea, yeah, so still thinking on her 10th move. She's got a nice little edge. Out of the opening, she's got the bishop pair. She's got a pretty good center. Yeah, not too much to say about this position on the right side of your screen. White is slightly better, but it can be hard. It can be hard to improve in a position like this because you have everything. You have the nice center. You have the bishop pair, but what on earth do you actually do? I would play a move like a4 here. I would play a move like a4 and prevent black from expanding on the queen side with b5. Because if you allow like b5, b4, I think it gets pretty unpleasant. And yeah, my choice would be something like a4 or rook e1 or something like queen d2, just connecting the rooks. But yeah, my initial instinct here would be to play a4 because typically when you have this c6, d6, e5 structure, typically black wants to expand on the queen side with b5, and you want to make black's life as difficult as possible. Alex's opponent is very young. I don't know the exact age, but probably something like 10 or 11. Yeah, so Andrea is taking her time. She's currently got 86 minutes on the clock, so still Still a lot of time to think. I mean, we're going to settle into these games pretty slowly. No, I don't think it's 7. I think, okay, 9. Apparently, um, yeah, apparently Alex's opponent is 9. His age tag says 5. That's pretty funny. But very, very young. It doesn't really matter. Now you can't really surprise me. 5, 4, they just get younger and younger. Okay, so let's see. In the meantime, back to Alex's game. Have any moves been played? Yeah, no, nothing has been played yet. So White taking his sweet time. Yeah, I don't really see too many appealing options other than castling here. So how is the game likely to continue? Probably White is going to castle. This hasn't happened yet. I'm just showing it on the board. Black will probably play. Yeah, but maybe knight f6. Alex will play. White will probably bring his bishop out, bishop g5, something like this, bishop e7. And we're going to get this kind of middle game where at some point White can play d takes c5, trade the pawns. I think the big thing for Alex right now is to get her king out of the center. If she can do that, then she's in pretty good shape. If White can get something going down the e file, it could get problematic for Black because White is lagging behind in development. Yeah, so let's see. This is the first round, yeah. The analysis is not showing. Let's see. Not see my moves. Let's see. I'm looking at the stream. Oh. Yeah, I'm just trying to. Yeah, you can't see some of my moves. Okay, so castles has not been played yet. Knight f6, yeah, bishop g5, bishop e7, but the current position is before White castles kingside. And okay, we have a move. Yeah, White is just castled kingside. So Alex's opponent has just made a move. It is kingside castles. And now I'm expecting knight f6 pretty quickly by Alex. Maybe she wants to play h6, trying to stop knight g5, but I don't think that she has the time for that. I think she's got to go, start developing. Yeah. Okay. So looking at Andrea's board. Okay, she's made a move g3. Very interesting move by Andrea. Let's update. Sorry. Yeah, this is I just have so many things open here. Andrea has played the move g3. G3. Yeah, a bit of a puzzling move. Not really sure. Not really sure what she's going for here. My guess would be she's going for bishop g2 and f4. And she's trying to expand on the king side. It's not a terrible move. It's probably wouldn't be my choice. But I think I understand what she's trying to do. I think she wants to drop her bishop back to g2, and then kind of contest the center with f4. Because if she can get black to trade on d4, then that's a pretty big win for white. Because then you get this idea of a quick kingside attack. So again, my concern is that you're allowing black to expand on the queen side of the move like b5, but it's not a given that her opponent knows this idea. And it's not like b5 is winning or anything. Andrea could play a3, stop the further progress of the pawn. So g3 is a neutral, like I'm neutral about this move. It's a decent move. Okay, her opponent has played queen c7. Yeah, so also a pretty standard response. Not too much to say just yet about this game. I think the middle game is going to be exciting, but for now, they're kind of getting their pieces out. Looks like her opponent wants to put a rook on d8, maybe strike in the center with d5. So let's see if my theory is proven right if Andrea drops her bishop back to g2. That was sort of okay. She's back at the board. And probably will play bishop g2 pretty quickly, would be my guess. In the meantime, Alex has made a move, and she actually has played h6. So I mentioned this move. I'm not a huge fan of h6. I would be a little bit scared to leave my kingside undeveloped like this. But yeah, she was worried about the knight jumping to g5 and hitting this bishop on e6. So h6 is on the board. White is thinking. Probably white is going to bring her bishop out. His bishop out. I don't know if it's a she or a he. I don't know. I don't know exactly who Alex is playing. And they're wearing a hood. Yeah. So unidentifiable. Okay, so h6. It's a dude. Okay. H6 by Alex. I wouldn't call this a mistake. I think it's actually a reasonable move. And again, if black can get her pieces out of the king side, then in the long run, I think Alex is a good position. The question is, can white create some trouble for her before she's able to get these pieces out? My move here would be bishop to e3 with white. So if white plays bishop e3, this would be my instinct, threatening just to win a pawn with d takes e5. And you don't really want to trade on d4 prematurely because then white will take with a knight, and this is how you get in trouble. Now, this is hanging. This is under fire as well. And if you allow white to take on e6 and give a check on h5, now the king is driven out. So this would be an example of how I would not play with black. And bishop e3 asks some pretty unpleasant questions to Alex. She would probably have to go c4. But then the knight jumps into e5. It's a pretty unpleasant position if white plays it well, but it's very, very hard to play this position well. So let's go back to the live position. Alex has played h6. Her opponent is thinking. Her opponent is thinking. My guess is he's probably going to bring the bishop out to e3 or f4. And the next step for black is to get the knight out. Okay, knight a4 actually has been played. Ooh. That is a very advanced move by white. Knight to a4. That's a very good move by the kid. Well, knight a4. That actually didn't occur to me at all, but it's a very strong move. This is why I'm not playing in the tournament, because I'm going to face someone like this, and I wouldn't have much chances against him. Knight a4 is a really strong move. The idea is the same as bishop e3. You're trying to force black to take on d4, and then the knight gets into the game. And again, Alex's last move, I really did not like h6. I think the priority should have been to get her pieces out ASAP, because now her king is kind of stuck in the center. So I think to save face, Alex should play c4 here. This is a big moment early on. She has to go c4. And now if white puts the knight on c5, which is sort of the tempting move, now black is okay. Black can trade on c5. Black can go knight f6. As long as black gets the pieces out, she'll be fine. But do not play c takes d4. I think that's a road to immediate disaster. Yeah, this is a slightly concerning moment early on in this game after knight a4. And white is back to sleeping at the board. Okay, on Andrea's board, which is a lot less concerning. Yeah, Andrea has played bishop g2, sort of as predicted. Fianchettoing her bishop, I think preparing the move f2, f4. Yeah, everything is honky-dory on her board. But definitely Alex's board is the one that we should be concerned about together. Let's see if she can find her way out of the early trouble. She has played c4. Big move. Alex has found the move c4. And yeah, I wouldn't pay too much attention to the eval bar here. It's showing like +1, but that doesn't necessarily mean that black is lost or anything like that. Again, everything depends on whether black can get her pieces out of the king side pretty quickly. Yeah, it's a new thing for kids to like wear hoods at the board. When I was playing Scholastic Tournament, like when I was playing a lot of kids, like that wasn't really a thing people did. But now kids do that all the time. They're wearing a hood just to like maximize their concentration, eliminate all the distractions. B5. No, B5 was not played. Bishop G2. Oh, yeah. Queen C7, Bishop G2, and Rook F to E8. Is what Andrea's opponent has played. Yeah, now the big question is, does Andrea want to play F4? Blasting open the center. That game is moving along a little bit faster. Yeah, Alex's opponent still hasn't moved. What's up, Yun Ludwig? Danya, have you played as strong kids? Alex always says terrifying. Yes, trust me. I have played many strong kids throughout my life. Yeah, Andrea's board is now updated. Bishop G2, Rook F to E8. I'm a little bit surprised Black was not playing B5, but she's just kind of maintaining the status quo. I was once a pretty dangerous kid myself. I was like the small kid that people hated playing. Yeah, nowadays it's like I think for people who are new to chess, it's very weird to see like 10, 11-year-olds playing adults, and often beating adults. But if you watch chess for long enough, you know that that's not really unusual anymore. Even like 10 years ago, it was not really a thing that people would bat an eye at. Like, 9, 10 years old, if you're rated 18, 1900, there's a million of those kids. So I don't think that like chess playing adults think to themselves like, oh my gosh, like I'm playing a tiny kid, they must have just learned how the knight moves a couple of days ago. That's, we're pretty used to it. My rating when I was 10 was maybe about 1900. It's nothing special by today's standards. Today, if you're not like a GM, by the time you learn how to put your pants on, you've got no future in chess. People are asking about the time control in this tournament. It's like 2 hours. Yeah, I want to say it's 2 hours for the whole game. There's a lot of time. And right now, both Andrea and Alex are over an hour. If things get down to time pressure, I will update you on the timestamps on the time remaining. But right now, it's not a consideration. Alex has an hour and a half on her clock. Andrea has an hour and 19, and she did indeed play F4. So very logical play. She went G3, then she dropped her bishop back, then she went F4, starting to expand on the king side, adding some heat to the center. Time control is 100 minutes for the whole game, so almost 2 hours, 100 minutes for the whole game with a 10-second increment. So every move you make, 10 seconds are added back to your clock. This is to avoid like crazy time scrambles over the board. Okay. If you have any questions about the games or about my explanations, feel free to ask them in the chat. Again, I have like a gazillion things open. I'm following both games. I'm following the chat, and the live feed and the stream and the chat. So I've got like 8 things I'm keeping an eye on. I might miss your question, but I will do my best. Can you explain why White's position is better in Alex's game? Yeah, so the bottom line, there's 2 like big factors here. The biggest reason why I was concerned about Alex's position is the development. You have to see who has more pieces out and whose king is safer. And well, it doesn't take a GM to see that Black's king is still in the center. Alex has only one piece developed. It's this bishop on e6, but also the bishop is kind of vulnerable because it's being pinned by the queen. And White's got a lot of potential. Like White's got this knight that's coming into c5. Alex also has pretty bad pawn structure on the queen side. These pawns are doubled. And White's king is safer. So that's why I keep saying if Black can get her pieces out of the king side, get that king to safety, we can all breathe a sigh of relief. And actually, Alex's opponent is not moving, which tells me that he doesn't see like a clear path to maintaining the initiative. You think these kids are sleepy, but they're actually plotting the takeover of the world. Just a second. I had to turn the AC on. It's getting hot in here. Okay. And I opened the window, which is probably wrong because it's very, very hot in Charlotte right now. It's always cold in the playing hall, though. That's one interesting thing I've noticed. Yeah, it's 83 degrees here. But in the playing hall at these tournaments, it's always freezing. Like the AC is blasting. And it's like a completely different world in there. Okay. Looks like we had a move from Alex's opponent. Yes, knight c5 has been played. And Alex immediately taking on c5 because there is no choice. The bishop is hanging, so Alexander takes. White recaptures. This is the current position. Black to play. Yeah. Now I'm guessing we will see knight f6 or knight e7. Right? There's two different ways to develop this knight. And most people who learn chess, like they always want to bring the knight out to f6 because you're taught that this is the more active square, but that's not always the case. So what is going to happen here? My guess is that Alex will play knight f6. And White, I think, on the next move wants to put her knight on d4. This is a very annoying idea because this knight is a beast. It's hitting the pawn. It's hitting the bishop. Alexander can defend both the bishop and the pawn by bringing her queen up, but then White can apply more pressure with the move rook to e1. And at some point, Alex might be forced to give up a pawn because here the top priority is just to get the king out of dodge. So we might see Alex castling if this position happens. This is not the live position. I'm just showing you what I think might happen. And then we might get like a big... actually, there's a little subtlety because if White plays knight takes e6 here, Alex can actually go rook fd8, delaying the recapture of the knight because the knight can't move. And the knight can't move because the knight is pinned to the queen. Then Alex would pick up the knight and she'd be doing great. So let's go back to the current position. White has just recaptured the bishop, and Alex is thinking in this position. Andrea, still no updates. Her last move was f4, and her opponent is deep in the tank. Yes, I mean, even as a GM, you play a lot of kids at tournaments. So it's not, again, it's not uncommon, especially in like the early rounds. The average age of this tournament, of the Alex and Andrea's section that they're playing, because they're playing in the under 2100 section. Usually tournaments in the US have sections that are divided by ratings. So they're playing in the under 2100 section. There's also an open section where like the GMs are playing. There are 3 GMs playing in this tournament, I think, or 4 GMs. And the top seed is actually Min Lee, also known as Wonderful Time. He is currently in Charlotte playing this tournament. They're also playing right now. I would say, well, there's an old like Soviet Russian chess expression, which in Russian is "Smolodежью Ventspil," with young players to the end game, literally. And my coach would always tell me this, like if you're playing a kid, the ironic thing is he was telling me this when I was a kid myself, but I was like a different kind of kid. You want to like get very boring positions, like get long grinded out end games, because the thought goes that kids they like tactics and they like dynamic positions, but they're not going to know what to do in like old Russian schoolboy type positions. Unfortunately, nowadays, I think this is a lot less true because, everyone watches like tons of YouTube and kids are a lot better at boring positions and at positional chess than they used to be. But still, I think this is probably the best strategy against like the ultra young crowd. But you can see like even Alex's opponent already demonstrating like quite a nice command of, like positional thinking. Like even this maneuver, knight a4, that's not an easy move. Just knight to the side of the board, attacking the weakness. White is playing like a seasoned veteran of the game. So it's very, very different nowadays than it used to be. Yeah. No, most actually what I found to be the case is that most of these talented kids are actually very well behaved. I think chess kids typically are very mature. You rarely see, and maybe you guys can remember incidents where Alex or Andrea played someone who caused a ruckus at the board or was like, wiping their nose with the knight or like, I've definitely had my share of opponents who are just like being obnoxious in order to be obnoxious, or like they're bringing a tuna fish sandwich to the game. But adults can do that too. Most of the time, these kids are actually very well behaved, and they don't cause disturbances at the board. So yeah, or like they're like peeing on the peeing on the d6 square. Actually, speaking of the d6 square, White's bishop is angling for that nice little outpost. Yeah, Alex has to be very careful here in this position. I think she senses that. That's why she's taking her time, sensing that, okay, I need to be careful for the next couple moves. Andrea's opponent still thinking. I'm keeping an eye on both boards. I mean, you guys will see when either of them moves. In the meantime, I can answer your questions. We can just chat about the tournament. Obviously, there will be moments when there's no moves on both boards. This is classical chess for you, but it feels very different when you're playing. Trust me, when you're playing, it doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, I've spent like 15 minutes thinking about my move, because you're so invested that you don't notice the time passing. So 2 hours actually doesn't feel like such a long time control. Um, the time control is 80 minutes. It's a slightly odd. Sorry, it's 100 minutes for the whole game with a 10-second increment. My current rating, my current USCF rating is about 2,700. My FIDE is 2,620. But I don't play as much classical anymore. Yeah, when I had a long airplane trip recently, and I sat next to a guy who brought out like a huge tuna fish sandwich, and it smelled like a place where the sun don't shine. So you don't want to do that in the tournament hall either. In general, eating at the board, you don't want to eat obnoxiously at the board. Like if you bring a chocolate bar or like a granola bar or something like that, that's one thing. But if you bring like, I don't know, like a Dave's triple from Wendy's and then start noisily unwrapping it, okay, that's like crossing the border. You're not going to get forfeited for any of that, but it's just etiquette. Prediction if Alex castles before move 20. Okay, so currently we're on Black's 12th move. Yeah, she's definitely going to castle before move 20. If she doesn't castle before move 20, it's because the game is over. No, she definitely will. My prediction is yes. Is this like a meme on the stream? Is this is this a thing? Like, will Alex castle before move 20? Because she usually doesn't. Have I met Alex? Yes, I saw her on Wednesday. We also went to the same college, small unknown place in Palo Alto. Okay, it's move 10. Yeah, no, now that ship has sailed. It's move 12. No, I also who doesn't forget to castle by move 20 from time to time? Don't we all? Okay, a move from Andrea's opponent. Andrea's opponent has just centralized her other rook a to d8. So the atmosphere is slowly starting to, just like the Jocelyn Kramnik match. It starts out very calm and then suddenly it explodes. Yeah, just look at what's going on. There's so much going on in the center. And who will flinch first? Like who will be the first to reduce some of this tension? It shouldn't be Andrea. Like she should not take this pawn, because then Black will recapture and then the rook is going to x-ray White's queen. If I were in Andrea's shoes, I would play a slow, like calm, improving move. Maybe g4. keep expanding on the king side. If I had to make a prediction as to what she's going to play, I think she might go g4. You can also go with the old move that I recommended, a4, queen d2. So the position's still very, very it's kind of a pressure cooker middle game, but I still like Andrea's position. She is slightly better here. But it's not like one side is clearly winning or anything like that. Okay, Alex has played knight f6. Good news. She has recognized the need. She's heard us. She's heard that she needs to castle, get that king out of the center. She's played knight f6. And I'll bet a silver dollar that her opponent will not resist the temptation to play knight d4. And I think white's going to do that pretty quickly, too. Knight d4 is just like asking to be played. Maybe it's not the best move. It's just the human move, the tempting move. So we'll see. That's right, Disco Thunder Dunk. Okay, it looks like I haven't lagged for the last like 30 minutes, right? It looks like we have left the tech issues behind us. That's good. I didn't just watch the Kramnik-Jospa match. I commented it in Russian on my stream earlier today. Did I just jinx it? Yeah. Okay, no, I didn't. I'm looking at the stream through my phone. I can see I'm not lagging. Great, awesome. That's Charlotte Internet. Let's go. Okay. White to move. Alex has gotten up from the board. Maybe to produce an alarm clock for her opponent, whose head just keeps like, it keeps like getting lower and lower to the level of the pieces. Yeah, it's too long of a story as to what happened in the Kramnik-Jospa match, but I'll tell that story a little bit later. What's the etiquette, asks Chief A1, if your opponent has left the table and you're ready to play your move? No, you don't. In a classical game, you play your move whenever you're ready to play your move. And one common misconception is people always ask, like, oh, are you allowed to get up? Yeah, you're allowed to get up as many times as you want. Obviously, like, you can go to the bathroom. This isn't like a third grade classroom. You're like, Mr. Smith, can I go to the bathroom? You can't, but you may. You can go to the bathroom whenever you want to. You can get up whenever you want to. What you can't do is you can't leave the premises of the playing hall. Like, you can't go back to your hotel room during the game, obviously. And that's pretty strictly enforced. Like, if you're seen, if you're seen by one of the chief tournament directors, like walking out of the playing hall past the bathrooms, that's a problem. Like, you can get forfeited. But yeah, you can get up, and if your opponent moves, you don't have to rush to the board immediately. Your clock is running. What you do on your time is up to you. Like, if you want to, if you want to look at the other games, that's your prerogative. So yeah, you can get up whenever you want to. You can drink and eat. Like, it's a pretty permissive environment. Yeah, you can get up and go behind your opponent, but I mean, you don't want to do that on every move, because then that's just like kind of weird. I played someone like that, though, who kept every move. He kept getting up and going behind me to like look at my perspective on the position. I thought he was trying to be obnoxious. Yeah, there's also no like bathroom, because usually chess players drink a lot of water or coffee during the games. So you're getting up and going to the bathroom like pretty often, and it's not weird per se. If it's happening every move, it might be time to give Kramnik a call. But cell phones are not allowed usually. Yeah, you're, as a player, usually not allowed to have your cell phone in your pocket. You have to leave it in your hotel room, or leave it with leave it in an appointed area where you come back and reclaim it after the game. They've really cracked down on that. Like around 2014, 2015, when cheating started to become a serious issue, most organizers started banning like if you're caught with your cell phone during the game, you could get forfeited. It used to be the case, like when I first started playing in 2005, 2006, people would come to the board with like big headphones of that era. They would listen to music. You could bring your iPod, remember that, to the game. Now it's like, no, that's a bygone era. Okay, still no moves after knight f6. Oh yeah, bishop e3 actually. Wow. So, wow, that's Alex is safe if she castles. Alex castles and she's fine. Bishop e3 is a very that's an old person move. That move doesn't really challenge black at all. So Alex is going to castle, maybe put a rook on e8, and she's actually doing great. Andrea still hasn't moved. She's got an hour and 13 minutes right now. Alex has an hour and 20 minutes on her clock. So nothing yeah, bishop e3. That's a move that black should be happy to see. I thought knight d4 was a lot more challenging. Yeah, it's relatively toothless. I feel like I use that phrase at least once per commentary. Relatively toothless. It's like not totally. There's like one tooth with this move. Alex did castle. Okay. Oh no, she did not. Yes, she did. She did. She castled. My prediction comes true. Yay. She castled. Breaking news alert. Black's king is now safe. Alex is fully developed, and the position is equal. I mean, the position is equal. I think the black's next move is going to be to put a rook on e8. Why do you put a rook on e8? Because that's an open file. Open files are good. Also, white has a queen on e2. That queen could get under fire. So in a bullet game, I'm essentially pre-moving rook e8. You don't really want to do that because if white now plays knight d4, which is not unlikely, I think white is trying to put a bishop on d4. I think that's what Alex's opponent is going for, bishop d4. But if white plays knight d4, you obviously would want to defend the c6 pawn. No, the board should be showing my analysis. That's kind of the point. It'll update momentarily. But yeah, Alex castled. If I can get it to wake up. Whoa. What is happening on this board? Dude, I don't even have that position on my screen at all. The board is demonically possessed. Dude, I'm trying to like I'm seeing the live position on my like classroom board. I don't know what's going on. I wish there was a way. Yeah, I'm just trying to get the I have no idea how this position is possibly on the board because it's not on my board. Just ignore what's on the left side until I get the live position up. Yeah, 95 by the way has been played by white. Yeah, but I'm unable to refresh it. Okay, I'm going to refresh. Yeah, 95. There we go. Okay, now you see the live position. There we go. Now it's fixed. Andrea, has she moved? She has. She's gone G4. Andrea has gone G4. Okay. In the meantime, white has put her knight on E5. Yeah, knight E5 is okay, semi-logical. Again, I was expecting the knight to go to D4. But this move also hits the C6 pawn. And Alex will defend it. My guess is she'll play queen C7. I don't know. What can black do in this position? Queen B8 actually is... No, queen B8... I think is too risky. Knight takes c6, queen takes b2, bishop d4. No, that looks suspicious. I would go queen c7 here. Maybe queen c8 to get out of dodge. But knight e5 is a reasonable move by Alex's opponent. It's still hard to like say exactly what's going to happen in this game, but we're entering the middle game, and Andrea with a really nice move. I like her aggressiveness on the king side, and actually she's already created a big threat. Officially a big threat to play g5, and the knight is actually just trapped. This is very easy to miss. You think, g5, I'll just move my knight somewhere. Where? Like if, for example, if black plays b5 here, it's already too late. White plays g5, and Andrea would trap this knight. It's actually not so easy for black to figure out how to even generate a square for this knight. Yeah, Andrea gets up from the board. I think she's feeling really good here. I really like her position. She's got a pretty dominant position. With a big attack on the king side, a big center. Bishop pair. Yeah, her opponent is in trouble. Again, the good example of where the eval bar is showing like approximate equality, but this position is not equal. Yeah, Andrea's in great shape here. Trying to score the early knockout by advancing the pawn up to g5. Okay, Alex is thinking. She's got 77 minutes on her clock currently. Alex's opponent has 75 minutes. So still plenty of time on the clocks. We're about an hour and change into the round. Yeah, queen c7 has been played. Alex defending the pawn with tempo. And yeah, hitting the knight. And I'm curious how white intends to defend the knight, which is currently hanging. Bishop to d4 and bishop to f4 would sort of be my two candidate moves. Yeah. I mean, bishop f4 is, I think, what a lot of you people watching probably are tempted to play because it sets up a discovered attack threat against black's queen. But this is easy to defend against. And Alex could just slide her queen to b7. And actually, black is starting to take over the initiative here because this pawn is hanging. And if you look at these two pieces, they look very imposing. But black is going to put a rook on e8, and white's pieces are going to start feeling a little bit uncomfortable. They're kind of in wide open space. The queen is still going to get x-rayed. So actually, I like the way this is going for Alex as well. Her opponent isn't really showing, I think, a good understanding of where the pieces belong here. But currently, we have this position after queen c7. So it's white to play. The knight is hanging. The position is still equal. I think bishop to d4 is the correct way to defend here. And Andrea's opponent has shifted her rook to f8. Andrea's opponent, look at the right side of your screen, has shifted her rook to f8, but that's an incredibly passive move. So she has recognized the threat. She has understood that the knight was being threatened, but I think Andrea should just start pushing her pawns. g5, force the knight back to e8. Ugh. That is a very yucky square for the knight to retreat to. And then you could just keep your attack going with a move like f5. Just go for the kill on the king side. f6 would blast open the king. I mean, just look at black's pieces. You don't have to be like a big chess player, a galaxy brain chess player to realize that even visually black's position sucks. But Andrea has to kind of step on the gas pedal here. This is not the time to dilly-dally. You should just go g5, and then you could also go h4. Someone was suggesting h4. This is also a good move. Just accumulate the kingside pressure. And kids really struggle. I mean, just to come back to the question of like, what do kids actually struggle with? They really struggle in positions where they're very passive. So this is the perfect position to have against like a 7-year-old or against a 77-year-old. This is just a good position for white, period. Okay, Alex's opponent is still thinking after queen c7, probably trying to decide where to put the bishop. Yeah, this is Andrea's type of position. She has a good sense for the attack. I think she'll handle this one well. But we'll see. It's easier said than done. It's easy for me to push other people's pawns. It's harder to actually commit to it. Someone is asking on Alex's board, why can't white play pawn f4? There's nothing like super wrong with this move. The problem with white playing f4 is that it gives up this big outpost for black. Like Alex could then put her knight on e4, and this is a very, very nice knight. Because in chess, you cannot move your pawns backward. So this would be a super cool outpost, and white doesn't really have the equivalent outpost, because then Alex could play the move you're always supposed to play, f6, and chase this knight away. Also, this pawn is kind of a weakness, so yeah. I don't think we're going to see f4, but maybe. You never know. Okay. Here we go. It's move 15 for white. Nobody's in a rush here. This is a classical game. Yeah. No, I mean, I think Alex survived the opening scare. And often when you like survive a dubious opening, the trend of the game kind of favors you. And in the last couple of moves, her position has gone from like clearly worse to slightly worse to equal to maybe even slightly better, if her opponent isn't like precise. So yeah, the hood is off, by the way. Her opponent has lifted his hood, Yang Yu, and that's a pretty good sign, I think, for Alex. Nifa, I don't know yet. We'll see how the games go. We'll see how tired I am. I have a very, very long week ahead of me, so I need to conserve some energy. Um, yeah, so basically to give you a sense of what's going on in Charlotte this weekend. So this weekend is the tournament that we're watching right now, the Carolinas Classic, and then next week there's going to be a camp for like talented, mostly for kids. I don't think there's an age restriction. There's a rating restriction though. You have to be 1800 or above to sign up. And I'll be teaching at that camp in a auxiliary role. Like I'll be doing like one lecture per day, but I'll also be playing the Bullet Championship. There is a big wasp on my window. I'm gonna close the window. But I'll be teaching at that. But Veselin Topalov is coming, Judith Polgar is coming, and RB Ramesh, the Indian trainer who was and I think is Pragnananda's main coach, are all teaching at that camp. So a lot of the kids who are playing in this tournament are going to stay in Charlotte for the week, and some of them are local, of course, but some of them are flying in from out of state. And they're playing the tournament, and then they're staying for the camp. Topalov and Judith are coming in tomorrow, so I'm actually picking them up, but they'll be hanging around the hotel doing some events this weekend as well. Yeah, people under kids. When I say kids in the chess context, it basically means like anybody under 18 and under, I think. Yeah, white is like thinking up the future of humanity in Alex's game. Her opponent is down to an hour, so surprisingly, Alex's opponent is taking his sweet time. Bishop d4, okay. As expected. That's a good move, but that was the expected move. And now I think Alex is probably going to put a rook on e8. Like if I was playing a bullet game, what would be my first instinct? Well, rook f to e8. Just x-ray the queen, put some pressure on the knight. I don't see a good reason not to play that move. Yeah, Veselin Topalov is a former world champion. You should look him up on... he's less famous than Kramnik, but he's a former world champion. So he actually beat Kramnik in a famous match in 2006. Okay, Alex's opponent is 9 years old, 2015 birth date for Alex's opponent. I don't know if he's 8 or 9, but that range. Yeah, bishop d4 is on the board. Alex is thinking. And Andrea still pondering, literally pondering, whether to push g5. I would not be able to resist. I mean, g5 is such a tempting move. Just push away the knight and then just start off the attack on the king's side. Yeah, I realized I was old in chess terms when I'm seeing kids that were born when I was already a GM, and they're like 2100 now. Um, I still don't think that there has been a kid born. I became a GM in 2014, so this was 10 years ago. So yeah, that's kind of a it's kind of a bad sign because it doesn't feel like I've been a GM for that long. But then I think about it. Yeah, I hear about something that happened in 1995. I'm like, oh, that was just recent. I was born in 1995. And I was like, wait, that's almost 30 years ago. Oh, crap. Okay. Yeah, 2015 still feels like it was 5 years ago. It definitely doesn't feel like it was a decade ago. Um, Interesting. Okay. Andrea, still thinking. I'm surprised Andrea hasn't made a move yet. G5 is like, as they'd say in Russian, well, this is kind of a violent phrase. Let me amend it to you'd be kicked out of a chess camp if you didn't play G5. Not that Andrea is participating in any chess camps, but I think we will see G5 momentarily. Um, Tell us a joke. See, I'm bad at remembering jokes from the top off the top of my head. A Spanish magician said that he would disappear on the count of three. He went uno, dos, but then he disappeared without a trace. Tell us a Russian joke. I have some of those. Um, I butchered that one a little bit. Okay, here's my favorite Soviet joke. I've shared this on my stream many times. So those of you who are regulars on my stream, um, know my favorite set of Soviet jokes. So an American and a Soviet person are having a conversation in like the 70s. And so they're comparing their standards of living in their respective countries. And the American tells his Soviet friend, listen, Boris, with full due respect, what I like about my country is I can go up to the steps of the White House, I can knock on the door, and I can say, Mr. President, I don't like the way you're running your country. And Boris's friend says, well, that's really interesting, John, because I can do the same thing. I can walk up to the steps of the Kremlin, knock on the door, and say, Mr. Gorbachev, I don't like the way the Americans are running their country. Yeah, that's a good one. That's yeah, Reagan's. Well, I mean, it's an old joke. It's not like I think it's been around for a very long time. Um, yeah, I'm thinking it's hard. It's one of those things when somebody asks you to tell a joke, it's hard to think of something off the top of your head. Like I tried to steal spaghetti from a shop, but there was a security guard and I couldn't get pasta. Are they doing a meetup like last time in Charlotte? I actually don't know. I'm just the commentator. I'm just the commentator. I'll think of some more Soviet jokes as we go along. We got a long way to go. This is just the start of the game. I'm gonna keep I'm gonna keep some of these jokes for later. In the meantime, you know what's interesting? Again, I'm telling you, Alex's opponent's head just like keeps just like puts it first it was like on his like resting, now it's like on his arm. He's like going to sleep. It's bedtime, almost 8 o'clock. But I don't think he's gotten up from the board like a single time, which is weird. I mean, actually, neither opponent has. Like I get up from the board all the time. Okay, Alex has moved. Wow, what a surprise. Rook F8. Rook F8 is on the board. Oh, he just did. Okay. I just didn't see it. Yeah, a lot of the times the parents are watching and they're like policing how many times their kid is allowed to get up from the board. Okay, while I was telling my joke, I see. Mm, Andrea is still thinking. See, that's bothering me a little bit. I think Andrea is wasting too much time on this moment. She's down to an hour on her clock, which sounds like a lot. But remember, they started with 100 minutes, which you shouldn't ask a history major how much that is, but I think that's an hour 40. So it's time to get cracking, I think. I know that one, Bones. Do I have any chess related jokes? See, I chess related jokes. The problem is the ones I know are not actually funny. Like I know a lot of, little quips and like Yasser stories and stuff, but they're not like it's not like you hear the joke and you're like, aha, that's so hilarious. They're more just like funny little quotes and sayings um and stuff like that. There's an old Soviet joke. I've heard it in reference to Mikhail Tal. So the rumor has it that the former world champion Michael Tal, a reporter comes up to Mikhail Tal and she says, "Congratulations on the world championship title. We heard that your work ethic is in large part responsible for your victory, and we heard a rumor that you're able to study chess 25 hours a day. How do you do it?" And Tal answers, "I just get up an hour earlier." Andrea has made a move, and it is queen to e2, actually. So she doesn't play g5, but queen e2 doesn't like ruin anything. She's just sort of sitting on the position. I'm surprised she didn't go g5. I would be curious to know after the game what was her big reservation here, but it doesn't, her move doesn't ruin anything. She's just coordinating her rooks. And if I were Andrea's opponent, I would go b5. I would try to create some counterplay on the queen side, but I feel like Andrea's got this under control. Um, in the meantime, Alex's opponent has also made a move, and it is rook f to e1, putting the rook on an open file. Also pretty logical. So let's turn to Alex's board on your left. What would I do here if I were Miss Botez? I would probably consider. Well, okay, I think the tempting move is probably knight e4, but that knight could be chased away with f3, so maybe not. Maybe move the bishop out of the way and start harassing this knight on e5. Um, you could also put a rook, the other rook on an open file. You could go rook a to b8, as someone is suggesting. The problem is the pawn on b2 is not actually hanging. The white bishop is guarding the pawn. So, yeah, so my inclination would probably be bishop f5. Another benefit of putting the bishop on f5 is if Alex does this, she is currently thinking, you're pressuring this pawn on c2. So white is not able to move the queen necessarily where he would want to move it. Like queen f3 would give up the pawn. I don't think white would do that. And if you put the queen on another square, then you're walking into knight e4. So this is exactly how things can get really nasty for white. Suddenly, this knight on e5 is also hanging. So I really like the look of this move, bishop f5, by Alex. And she doesn't have that many options here. I mean, maybe she can drop her knight back and try to trade the knights off, but this would kind of be playing for a draw, right? This would just be exchanging a bunch of pieces and making white's life easy. Alex wants to win. She's higher rated. So I'm voting for bishop f5 here. I'm voting for bishop f5. But she's currently thinking. She currently has 70 minutes on her clock, an hour and 9 minutes, an hour and 6 minutes for her opponent. Still plenty of time, and this is the current position. Okay, queen a5 was proposed. What does queen a5 do, though? Queen a5 doesn't really threaten anything. Um, yeah. Okay, we're chilling. If I have twin daughters, I'll name one Kate, and I'll name the other one Duplicate. What do you call a man who has lost his phone? You don't call him. Okay. That wasn't me. That was okay. Bishop f5 played. Round of applause for Alex. That was, I think, the first like money move that she found. She found bishop f5. That's a big move because now she's actually creating problems for her opponent. Suddenly this knight that looked really nice earlier is, well, it looked really knight earlier. Now it's not as nice. The pawn on c2 is under fire. If white plays the move c3, maybe that's what white should do. Maybe white should play c3. But then Alex could consider dropping her knight back to d7 and putting more pressure on this other knight on e5. That f6 would be threatened. Maybe white can go queen f3. Yeah, hitting the bishop, right? Knight takes knight, queen takes bishop, knight d3. Something like this could happen. And you get some sort of imbalance, which I think is good for... Typically, an imbalance is good for the stronger player because they're better at orienting themselves in unbalanced positions. Does Andrea have a move? Andrea's opponent is like basically sinking it, not doing anything and just kind of waiting for white to play g5. So Andrea has another chance now to play g5, which I would do again pretty quickly. So again, g5. G5 would be my guess. Would be my choice if I were Andrea, but she's down to 58 minutes. Yeah, again, it's time to get cracking. And so I've started. She's got a4, so she's still trying to squeeze the maximum out of this position. Passing the ball off to her opponent. I mean, eventually her opponent's going to go b5. And maybe that's what Andrea wants. Maybe she wants to bait her opponent into playing b5 and trying to expand on the queen side, and then white would trade, and then she would get the a file for her rook, and she would get this really nice square on a7 for her rook. The problem is if you try to put a rook on a7, well, you can't do that right now because that square is not protected. If you trade on e5 first, I don't really like this way of playing because it's just a one-move threat. Black moves her queen out of the way, and then this rook is actually kind of a liability because black would be threatening a move like bishop c5, and I think this would take the focus off of where Andrea should be attacking, which is the king side, not the queen side. No, so a4, it's okay. Sorry. What do we have here? Yeah, queen e2, a6, and Andrea has just played the move a4. Her opponent has 73 minutes and is thinking. And Alex's opponent has made a move, and it is queen d2. So we did consider this option. It's on the board. And after knight e4, I'm starting to get kind of excited for Alex's chances because there white has to be kind of precise. Okay, so what's going to happen in Alex's game? I think she's going to go knight e4. White's probably going to go queen f4, hitting the bishop. And then Alex actually has kind of a pleasant choice. The bishop is hanging, so she could move it back to h7. That would be probably my choice. And then she would be threatening a move like f6. You can see that white's pieces are really, really kind of poorly cobbled together in the center. Maybe white wants to go f3, but guess what? And Alex could still go f6 in response if she wanted to and hit this knight. Or, very nice maneuver, the knight could drop back to g5. And by doing so, you're threatening a very nasty little fork like knight e6. Let's not forget the c2 pawn is still hanging. So that could be something that Alex could pocket. She's better. She's in the driver's seat right now. She's definitely in the driver's seat. She's taken over the initiative, but she's not winning. I think that she is posing problems to her opponent. And when you're posing concrete problems, you're increasing the chances of a blunder. You can see the eval bar is showing a small advantage for Alex, which I think is accurate, but that's not the big reason that I'm optimistic. I just think it's a very nasty position to have to figure out a way forward in. Okay, Andrea has moved. No, Andrea's opponent is still thinking after a4. I will update you when there is a move. But okay, very exciting position. I think Alex should just go knight e4, make a statement move. There's no need to take too long on this move. Knight e4 is not like a risky move to play. Do you have a favorite quote? I like the quote, when the chess game is over, the king and the pawn both go in the same box. There's a lot of good chess quotes. Yeah, Dina's apparently playing a kid too. And who's not playing a kid? I think there's very few adult unadult games in round one of the Carolinas Classic, which you're watching. You're watching round one of the Carolinas Classic. I'm Daniel Naroditsky. It's a pleasure to be commentating the games. I hope you're enjoying the show. Um, yeah, this is just the first round. It's a classical over the board tournament. Alex's position is on the left. She has the black pieces. Andrea has the white pieces on the right side of your screen. Both sisters are now, I think, officially better. Good start to the round. Okay. Russian chess joke. Yeah, well. Okay. Let's see. Let's see what we get here from the BotezLive. Still thinking is Alex. She is, I'm sure, very tempted to jump into e4, but forcing herself to slow down. Maybe she's also considering a move like rook e6, trying to double on the open file and attack this knight. Actually, rook e6 is a pretty decent alternative. I personally wouldn't be able to resist the temptation to go knight e4, but maybe rook e6 is also on her radar. Yeah, there's no restrictions on like how much you can fidget at the chessboard. Yeah, plural. What is the plural of Botez? It's the BotezI. Like one database, multiple data buy. Books, booki. I think for the people saying that, like, generally when you're playing with small kids, you're used to them fidgeting a lot. And if you're an experienced over the board player, you just learn how to tune out distractions and distracting opponents. It's not as annoying as it may seem because you're just focused on your position. Um, so I think from the side, it's like, oh my God, how do you stand somebody who's like constantly moving around? But when you're like playing a game, you're not really focused on that, so you don't really care. Um, yeah, so still waiting on updates from Andrea's opponent and from Alex, um, who is thinking. I'm gonna take a 2-minute break. I'm gonna get some more coffee, run to the bathroom. I'll be right back, and hopefully we'll get good news from Alex. We want to see 94. I'll be right back. I'm gonna mute myself. guys. Okay, any moves? We have no moves. Wow, amazing. Well, that was anticlimactic. Still no moves. Alex is under an hour. Andrea's opponent is approaching an hour. So the positions you see on your screen are still the positions that are currently on the board. Okay, looks like Alex's opponent. Wait a second. Alex did move. She went A5. She went A5. Okay. A5. Bit of a quizzical move. Not sure I really. I mean, the thing is, black is comfortable here. It's Alex's opponent is not causing any immediate problems. So Alex is basically just saying, listen, kiddo, I want you to make a move. And I want you to try to make a move that doesn't harm your position because it's very easy for white to blunder here. Like queen f4 blunders the pawn. With that said, I don't really understand why Alex didn't put her knight into the center or why she didn't double rooks because the move a5 doesn't really advance the causes of black's position in any meaningful way. Slightly weird decision, but it doesn't really change the evaluation that much. Let's see what Alex's opponent does. He seemed to be about to make a move, but this is very common with younger players. They do this thing that they like hover their hand over the board and then retract it. Just like the fight with they're fighting their own impulsivity. Someone is asking, would a4 be good or bad? A4 is okay, but it would just hand the move back to black, and Alex would have another chance to centralize her knight. If I was playing white, I would play f3 here. I would try to take the e4 square under control so that black can't infiltrate it with a knight. Or I would go c3 in order to protect this pawn so that there's no long-term problem of this pawn being hanging, and also that it's nice to protect a minor piece in the center. So everybody does it to some degree. Everybody does the thing where they like hover and then retract their hand when they suddenly see that the move they're about to play blunders a queen. Well, I am Troy said, have you heard the quote? Sidi na rukach. That just means sit on your hands in Russian. It's not really a quote. Soapy Puppy, there was no yesterday. There was no there. There was no yesterday. This is the first round of the tournament. This is game one. Clean slate. Okay, Andrea's opponent has moved. Andrea's opponent has actually has jumped back to e8 with her knight without Andrea playing g5. So she's like, all right, I'm going to do you the favor of doing it for you. The problem with these types of positions is you might look at this and be like, oh, Andrea's totally winning. Just like look at her center. Black's pieces are terrible. Yeah, black's position sucks, but it's also kind of solid in a weird way. Andrea, the key to winning this game for white is to start the attack on the king side. So actually, I would still consider the move g5, even if it doesn't attack anything, just because you're not, the point wasn't just to attack the knight. The point is also to start the pawn storm on the king side. And also to control the f6 squares. The black can't put any other piece on this square. So this is what's called, this has no name, but you're basically clamping down on black's position. Sometimes you hear chess commentators or writers use the phrase restriction. You're restricting the movement of black's pieces. You're making it literally hard to make a move. I mean, look at black's pieces. They're stumbling all over each other. So for those wondering about the timestamps, this is a classical game. Sorry, b5 has not been played. This is a classical game. So Andrea currently has 56 minutes on her clock. If the time goes down to like under 20 minutes, I'll update you more frequently. But right now, this is not a consideration. Both Alex and Andrea have almost an hour on their clocks. Between Alex and Andrea, let me ask you guys this. Which of them gets into time pressure more often? Like, in which of them has more problems with like time pressure, more time pressure games? My guess is it would be Andrea, but I'm not sure. Andrea, okay. By total consensus, it's Andrea. Okay, so she's the one. Yeah, and I can already tell, I think Andrea, if I put on my chess coach hat and I was like trying to, use what I see to advise them on how to improve. I think already I can see Andrea hesitates in critical moments and maybe doesn't trust herself as much as she should, which is easy for me to say. I mean, I don't trust myself as much as I should. She's played the move A5, so she's playing this very positionally. She's playing this like like an old Soviet master. Like instead of attacking, she's restricting squares on the other side of the board. But again, none of her last like 4 moves have been bad. It's just that my choice would have been to start the attack, but it's not like what she's doing is terrible or it gives black an obvious response. Her Andrea's opponent is also like not is showing that she doesn't really know what to do in this position. So sometimes it's a good strategy, like a good meta strategy, to just like let your opponent, give your opponent some rope, which is kind of what Alex did with her last move A5. So, okay. The time control for those of you just joining, welcome everybody, by the way. Hope you're having a great Friday. It's 100 minutes with a 10-second increment. It's a very simple time control. There's no time addition on move 40. It's 100 minutes with a 10-second increment. The tournament is being held in Charlotte, North Carolina. Total dump. I don't know anybody who lives in this awful city. I'm surprised it even has an airport, honestly. Just kidding. I myself am a short drive away from the Botez sisters right now, but I am obviously commentating from my home. I will be at the tournament site tomorrow playing the Blitz the evening. I don't know if they're streaming the evening Blitz, but I'll be at the tournament site playing the Blitz. I'm not playing the classical event, obviously, because I'm commentating. And I don't want to play it, but I will be playing the Blitz. The traffic is not bad at all. I'm from San Francisco. People who complain about Charlotte traffic have not driven in California or Los Angeles or any other big cities. Yeah, what I will say is that the area where the tournament is being held, it's in the university area, so it's near UNCC, University of Charlotte. So that area is not like an amazing area. It's just like a nothing area. But if you're playing a tournament like this, you're playing 2 games a day. You're not like walking around sightseeing. So I'd struggle to communicate this to like my classmates. I came back from Paris. They're like, wow, did you see the Eiffel Tower? It's like, no, I was playing a chess tournament. Like, you don't have neither the time nor the desire to like visit museums or like walk around the town. You're preparing for your games. You're like basically never getting out of the hotel. So it doesn't even really matter where the tournament is held a lot of the time, unless there's 1 game a day. Also, there's no sightseeing to do in Charlotte because there's 1 museum, which is a pretty good museum, but that's about it. Also, I don't particularly like museums. But I think museums are the kinds of thing you're supposed to say that you go to museums. You don't want to be that guy who says you don't like museums, but I don't like museums. I have been to the Louvre. Update the board, please, Danya. Okay, the boards are updated. Alex's opponent has just played the move A4, which we discussed. I said that this move passes the ball back to Alex, and again, she has an option of playing knight E4. Andrea's opponent still hasn't moved. So the boards are updated. Well, I like history museums, but my mental reference point with museums is like art, mostly art museums. History museums are not that common, like good history museums. Charlotte has NASCAR, yeah. So if you're into that. Okay. So it's funny. Andrea has just played the move A5. We have some A pawn action in both boards. Andrea has played A5. Alex's opponent has just played A4. And I would be shocked if Alex does not play knight e4. I just don't understand what the downside is of this. Now, one reason Alex is hesitating could be that she's thinking, okay, well, white's going to go here, I'm going to go here, and white's going to go here, and then why would I put my knight on a square where it would be chased away anyway? But maybe she's missing this knight g5 move. This is kind of a weird move, but as I indicated earlier, the knight can head back to e6, and I think people can see that these three pieces are getting targeted. But maybe knight g5. This is like an easy move to miss when you're sitting at the board and calculating. It's easy for us to see this move because I'm actually making the moves on the board. And this is a classic thing that maybe people can relate to. Like when you reach a certain position, it's often very easy to spot a move. When you're trying to visualize it in your head, it's much harder to see these like weird retreating moves. Okay, so a4 is on the board. Alex is thinking, and Andrea's opponent has moved. And Andrea's opponent has played bishop to f6. And this is exactly why I was advising Andrea to play g5, right? I mentioned that it prevents black's pieces from moving to f6. And now Andrea instead played a5, black played bishop f6. And if Andrea plays g5 now, then things kind of get messy because black can play e takes d4. Things get Lionel and then they get messy. gf, de, and who the heck knows who benefits from this entire scene. Yeah, fg, knight takes g7. And that is one benefit of this knight on e8. It's that it's guarding the g7 pawn so that black doesn't have to take with her king. And I wouldn't like this for Andrea. Like if she takes back, black can counter strike with f5 and things kind of get messy. So that's why I'm a little bit critical of the move a5. Bishop f6 is played. And also this pawn on a5 is now a liability. Like you've put this pawn on a5 and now you can't really go rook a to d1 because you're going to drop that pawn. I don't really like Andrea's last few moves. What would I do if I were in her shoes? I would play d takes e5, d takes e5, and probably f5. Trying to close up the center, trying to make this bishop look stupid on f6. Obviously, now white would be threatening g5 and black would have to go h6 to prevent this move from happening. Then you would want to go h4, but you can't. So maybe Andrea could slide her queen to f2 and start preparing the kingside pawn storm. So the key, does she realize like where she needs to attack right now? That's the big question. Alex moved. Alex went knight h7. Whoa, knight h7. That is a very deep move. That is actually a very interesting move. I don't dislike this move at all. Now, a lot of you guys are looking at this like, what is Botez doing? No, knight h7 is a move worthy of some applause because actually it's a very similar move to the one that I proposed. Because this knight, she sees where the knight belongs, which is ultimately e6. So this knight can either move back to f8 or it can jump up to g5. h7 is just a transit point. It's like Charlotte Airport. Like who would actually get off in Charlotte? You're just using it as an airport to get to a nicer place. So knight h7 is like a stopover en route to g5. And by the way, yeah, the engine doesn't like it. Do I look like someone who cares about the engine? You're like, yes. I'm roasting my own city today. Yeah, I usually I like where I live, but usually I roast San Francisco where I'm from. Today I'm roasting the host city. No, Atlanta is like the pits. Okay, so knight h7 by Alex. I still would have preferred knight e4. I don't really see the reason to be this ingenious. But I think Alex is sensing that her opponent is kind of losing the thread of the game. This is a common phrase you'll hear chess commentators use, losing the thread of the game. What does that mean? Kind of means like you're making a bunch of moves that aren't necessarily mistakes, but are kind of mid. And you're sensing that like if you give your opponent some chances to make more mistakes, then they will. So knight h7 is a move that like gives white a choice. And giving your opponent a choice is often a great way to induce a mistake because you have no idea what the heck to do. What is the chances of Andrea not knowing that she doesn't get additional time after 40 moves? Well, that's happened before in chess. Like sometimes you misread the time control and you don't realize that you don't have a time addition. I really hope Andrea did her pre-tournament research. Vesel and Topalov lost a game like that to Magnus because he didn't realize that there was like no time addition a couple years ago. Andrea has 50 minutes on her clock. She is still thinking after bishop f6. Alex is on the move. She's gone knight h7. Her opponent is thinking. Fun fact, I have actually never flagged in an OTB classical game, not once. When I was more active, and I tend to move pretty fast. Like I'm not a huge time pressure junkie in classical. Which is probably a surprise to exactly no one. Well, my specialty is blitz, but I've played a lot of classical tournaments. I got my GM title in over the board classical chess. It's taken me to every part of the world, and for a long time, blitz was not really my focus. But I appreciate the kind words. Of course, you can flag in classical chess. You can let your time run out. Yeah. It doesn't happen very often. I'm trying to remember, like, have I ever played an opponent? Yeah, I've played people, maybe like I've had 3 or 4 opponents flag against me in classical chess, but it's not common. Like typically people are aware of how much time they have on the clock. And often what happens is like you flag because your position is lost anyway. So you just like don't know what to do. And so your time runs out. So technically you flag, but it's because you had no moves. Your position was lost. Yes. So to get a GM title, to get any title, you have to do it through over the board classical chess. You cannot get any title playing online or playing blitz chess. Alex moved. Let's see. Knight h7. No. The boards are updated. Andrea is thinking. Yeah. Captain Cooter Slayer says, Danya, when you're flying all over the world getting your norms, do you get sponsored? Nope. So typically the way that it works is if you're a title player, like if you're a GM and you want to play an open tournament, and this is a little bit of, if this is boring, just stop me. But I think it's good for people to know this stuff because then you have a better understanding of like the jargon. So there's 2 types of tournaments. There's invitational tournaments and there's opens. Invitational tournaments, you will never believe it, are by invitation. For example, when I play the US Championship, that's an invitational tournament. It's the top 12 players in the US. Bob Smith off the street can't just come up to the St. Louis Chess Club and say, I want to play the US Championship. In these tournaments, you get invited. And you're like, who gets invited? Either you get invited if you're like top rating, or you win a tournament in order to qualify for the invitational. The tournament that you're watching right now, the Carolinas Classic, is an open tournament, which means anybody can register as long as you have an active United States Chess Federation membership. So if Bob Smith wanted to play, he couldn't play in any section. He would have to play in his appropriate rating section. So if Bob Smith is 1600, he would play in like the under 1800 section. Alex's opponent has played the move G4, which I'll get to in a second. But if you're a GM and you want to play an open tournament, typically you write the organizer. You're like, I'm Grandmaster Steven Gonzalez. That's not a real GM. I want to play this tournament. What can you offer me? And often GMs will get hotel, sometimes with a roommate. Sometimes you'll get your hotel room comped by the organizer. If it's like a top open tournament and you're a really strong GM, you might get airfare, or you might get what's called an appearance fee, which is an appearance fee is a fee that you get paid regardless of how you do in the tournament. The organizer pays you for the honor of having you participate in the event. That's the basics of tournament registration, but no, like I had no sponsor, other than my parents, obviously, but it's very, very tough. And nowadays there's a lot more norm opportunities in the US. So you don't have to travel as much to play in norm tournaments as like in my day in like 2011, 2012. I got 2 of my Grandmaster norms in Spain and 1 in Philadelphia. Okay, G4. We need to talk about this move. G4. G4. That is a panicky move by Alex's opponent. He's trying to throw her off, but he's actually just creating more weaknesses on the king side. I'm not sure I understand this move, G4. Why can't Alex just drop her bishop back, and why isn't this pawn just like a huge weakness now? Now, actually, I think F6 might be really strong here by Alex. F6 here. F6 is a money move. If Alex can find this move, this is huge trouble for her opponent. F6. Now you're like, why doesn't this just blunder the bishop? Because black would then take the knight. And how many times is the pawn defended? It's defended twice, so you can't take this pawn. You have to move the bishop. And just look at black's center. These pawns have visited an orthodontist. They're fully rectified, and white could actually lose his bishop. Like here, the bishop gets trapped. And now Alex looks like a total genius for playing the move A5, right? Because remember, she played A5. If the pawn was on A6, then white's bishop would be able to move out. So the bishop would have to go here, and here it still gets trapped. Wow. So F6 is like borderline winning for black. Now you might be like, well, white doesn't have to take the bishop. White can move the knight. But if you move the knight, then you drop the pawn and then just like look at white's king. And then Alex's knight would get into the game. And this is a total disaster. If Alex finds F6, white is in huge trouble. If she doesn't find F6, white is still in trouble, but not in as big of trouble. Bishop E6 here would be okay. I mean, Alex would still be much better. I think she can do it. I mean, F6 is a pretty straightforward move. I think she'll find it. Andrea is still thinking. She's down to 43 minutes. That is starting to get a little concerning. Now, it's easy for you guys to say F6 is natural, but it's actually not that natural because your bishop is hanging. And when your bishop is hanging, you typically want to move your bishop. That's like what you're taught to do. So the key is to like not autopilot your response, not like automatically assume that you have to move the bishop, but just think about other ways to respond to the threat. And yeah, I'm out of focus. My camera should refocus momentarily. F6 here is a huge move. Can Alex find it? Yeah, bishop e4, somebody was... Bishop e4 is also good. Bishop e4 is also a great move. I think white is intending f3, but then Alex could still play f6. So this resource could work on the next move as well. Okay, big moment. If Alex finds f6 or bishop e4, I think white is in big trouble here. G4 is one of those moves that kids play when they're panicking. Like I said, knight h7 was a really, really awesome resource by black, and it provoked the desired panicky reaction. What's your favorite city in Spain? Probably Barcelona. I really enjoyed Madrid though as well. Andrea is Sasha Grishuk reborn. Yeah. No, Andrea like burned way too much time on not playing G5. And now she's burning a ton of time trying to figure out like how to protect this pawn. But the decisions here don't matter that much. Like the price of a move isn't that high, and you don't just want to like burn all your time on like non-essential early middle game decisions, because then you don't have time for the actually important ones. Andrea moved. Okay, Andrea has played G5. She has played G5. So she went for that super tactical line that I was illustrating earlier, which I was not convinced is in her favor. So Andrea's opponent now has a chance to get back into this game with e takes d4. And then we're going to get this like both sides taking a bunch of each other's pieces kind of thing. And it's a complicated position at the end of it. I don't think black is better. I just think it's complicated, and Andrea had the chance to get a much better position earlier. But her opponent isn't necessarily going to play this move. Her opponent also could take the other pawn, which is also a viable candidate move. Andrea would still probably take the bishop and do essentially the same thing, but this would be a slightly better version compared to e takes d4. So we're going to get this type of position, I think. And here Andrea would want to run her f-pawn up the board, but black could actually stop her from doing that. This is like the worrisome move. Yeah, this is going to get really messy. But let's see. Let's wait for her opponent. Sorry, let's wait for her opponent to move first. Alex has found f6. Alex has found f6. Yes. Huge moment. Alex has found f6, and she's found it quickly, too. Yeah, Alex has found the key move. And white is in huge trouble here. Huge trouble. Now, when I say huge trouble, what do I mean? I don't think that white is losing if he finds a bunch of computer moves, but he's not going to find a bunch of computer moves. What should Alex's opponent do here? Maybe a desperado. Maybe like knight takes c4 is what white should do. And here, there's a lot of work to be done for Alex. She could even play knight g5 in response and aim for this f3 square. No, this looks awful for white. This looks absolutely... This looks like hot garbage. The knight is coming in. Look at these light squares. The bishop is coming in. Yeah, this move g4 is just... was very nicely punished. This is looking good. This is looking very good. Just a moment. Okay. Has any kid actually cried during a loss in these tournaments? Yeah, I mean, it's pretty common to cry after like a loss, especially for kids. Like that's the standard. And not just kids. Yeah, painful losses painful losses are painful in a way that is hard to describe. Like when you lose a winning position or when you lose a big game, it's just like pure pain. Many times. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, when you just worked your tail off for 6 hours or however long the game lasts, and then you made a stupid move at the end, it's an awful feeling. Like nothing. I think chess players always say like the pleasure or the euphoria you experience after a win is not equivalent to the pain you experience after a loss. The pain is much, much worse. It just like eats at you. Okay, Andrea and her opponent are going down this line. We have d takes e3 on the board. So as I expected. Okay, Andrea is going to take on g7. She just did. Yes, they have this on the board. Her opponent is going to take with a knight. Andrea will pick up this pawn. And we're going to get a kind of a very combative middle game, in which anything can happen. Yeah, knight takes g7 has been played. And Andrea is going to pick up the pawn momentarily, I think. Well, first of all, before I talk about like how Andrea should proceed, let's wait for black's. First of all, Andrea should take this pawn. Like there's this pawn on e3. It's sitting there. One thing that Andrea might be thinking about is maybe she wants to throw in the move f5 first, because the logic could be, well, this pawn isn't going anywhere. Black can't defend it. So as I pointed out, like one important thing is to prevent black's pawn from moving forward. So maybe Andrea is tempted by this move. I don't think it's a particularly great move because it gives up this very big square for black's knight. Black could play f6. Okay, the eval bar doesn't like it, but the point is like you would be giving black's knight this big outpost. But clearly this is what Andrea is thinking about. But she's taken the pawn. She has taken the pawn. Good on her. It's move 20. She's got 41 minutes. And now let's wait for her opponent to make a move before I like draw any conclusions, because Andrea's opponent's next move is going to tell us a lot about like the position. Will she play f5? Will she play a move like rook e8? That will change a lot about how I talk about this. Alex's opponent has moved. He's gone for knight takes c6. So this is very similar to the move I was discussing, but it's actually a worse version of it. I think if Alex finds knight g5, she is now officially completely winning if she can find knight g5. Now, what's going on here for people who are like confused? There's two reasons why black is winning here. The first is like the weakness of white's king and the fact that this square is really, really weak, and it's weak because white played the panicky move g4. So right now, if white takes the bishop, Alex would go knight f3. If she finds knight g5, that is. She hasn't played that move yet, but I think she's about to. If white defends against the fork, that's actually not that easy to do, because if you go queen back, then black would take the rook and then deliver the fork. If white finds a way to defend against the fork, maybe rook e3, then Alex could just calmly move her bishop, and the knight is literally trapped. So, I mean, look at this knight on c6. It has no way back. It's trapped. Alex would take it, and she's also, the cherry on top is that white is also getting like cooked on the king side. So this is, yeah, knight takes c6 is another tilty move. With 46 minutes left, she should be able to wind her way out of the conflict. I mean, even, it's probably not the only move. Like, probably there are other winning moves here, but knight g5 is by far the most accurate. It's not over. Like, I think we need to be careful about this word over. I mean, if you watch a lot of chess, you will know that many times you get a completely winning position and then you make a bad move and you lose. That can happen to anybody, but it's more rare in classical chess because you have more time, so you can consider your moves. Like in Blitz, it happens all the time, but it happens in classical, like even at the top level, like one side is completely winning, but everyone's human. So this is a sharp position. It's not like a guarantee that Alex will find the right move here. There's another important line. If Alex finds knight g5 and white trades the rooks and then tries to get out of it like this, there's a cool checkmate. Alex could give a check on f3. Then she could take this pawn, driving out the king, another check, and a checkmate on g4. So this could happen as well. But this is an easy line to calculate. So, yeah, so the big moment here, can she find knight g5? And she played a different move, which is also totally winning. She played bishop to e4 first, which is fine. It's a little bit less accurate than knight g5, but I think it should do the trick nevertheless. She first wants to get the bishop out of dodge, and then she wants to activate the knight. I don't think that this is going to change the result of the game. Yeah, white is dropping a piece here, regardless, I think. Or getting mated. One or both. Yeah, this is looking really, really juicy for white, for black. Andrea's opponent is still thinking. Also down to 50 minutes. I'm smelling like a time scramble in the making in Andrea's game. Neither of them is in a particular hurry here. Andrea's not in trouble. Absolutely not. The position is about equal. Now you might be like, well, she should have been winning by now because she's playing someone who's 300 points lower rated than her. Well, okay, but it's not that easy. Why not take the knight? Because the bishop was also hanging. So the point is you get the bishop out of dodge, and now the knight is still trapped. So traditionally, if you draw, you get half a point. If you win, you get 1 point. If you lose, obviously, you get 0. The reason that taking the pawn was worse is actually taking the pawn was also probably winning, but I think the reason Alex didn't play it is because it allows white to extricate this knight. White can take the rook and go knight takes a5. Now, this would still be totally losing, but The point is you're trying to restrict annoying options. So Alex decided to centralize her bishop. The piece activity here is much more important than like grabbing a pawn. She's playing for a lot more than just a pawn here. Yeah, that's how I would explain it. Yes, I can see the time situation. Alex has 45 minutes. Yang Yu, her opponent, has 44 minutes. Andrea currently has 41 minutes to 48 minutes by her opponent. Yeah, for those just joining on this lovely Friday evening, it's round 1 of the Carolinas Classic. We've got Alex's game on the left. She's got black. Andrea has white on the right side. We're about 2 hours into the round. And it might be a quick one for Alex if she can come up with a few more accurate moves. Please talk about Norway chess, dude. I don't even know who won Norway chess. I think it was Magnus, but I'm going to be totally... The production for Norway chess was great, but this is a more interesting tournament, I think. I was not very in touch with the games from Norway chess. Magnus did win, yeah. What a surprise. Yeah, the confessional booths were cool, but that's also not the first. Norway chess did not invent confessionals. They've been a thing for like several years now. Thanks, Ryan, for the gifted subs. Who do I like more, Fabi or Hikaru? I like everybody. I love everyone equally. You're not going to get a non-diplomatic answer out of me. I like Fabi. I mean, Fabi and I are on great terms. Like we've known each other well, but it doesn't mean nowadays, like you can't say that you like one person without people assuming you hate the other one. Andrea's opponent has moved. Andrea's opponent has played. She has found F5, which is a pretty impressive move from Andrea's opponent. So she has found what I think is the most challenging move. Now Andrea has a big decision, and this is what worries me about her clock situation. Andrea has 40 minutes. I could see her spending like 20 of them in this position. What should she do here? My instinct, well, first of all, she probably should not take on F5 because that would enable Black's knight to get into the game. Maybe she could be tempted by this check on E6, but this check doesn't actually do anything. It actually helps Black get the king to a safer square. And let's not forget, Andrea's king is also kind of vulnerable here because the G file is open. So she could get attacked on the same side of the board that she wanted to attack Black. What I would do is actually just move the king preemptively. Just get the king to a safer spot, king H2, and maybe prepare rook G1. This is a pretty typical operation in chess, to go king H1 or king H2 and rook G1 and just try to fight for the G file, which is consistent with the way that Andrea has been playing thus far. Alex's opponent has moved, and he's played knight takes A5. Okay. Tricky little move. We'll get to Andrea's game later. I mean, nothing big will happen there in the next couple moves. Now, Alex should avoid taking this knight with the queen. Actually, this would be a very bad move because after the queen trade, even though Black has an extra piece, White has several pawns for the piece, and White could play this very unpleasant move F3, and suddenly you can't take that pawn because your rook is hanging because the other rook has moved out of the 8th rank. So Alex should not get greedy here, and instead, I think she should throw in this move, knight G5. This is the key move. This knight is not going anywhere. The knight on A5 is dead meat. So knight G5 is just going to completely do White in. And she's played it. And she's played it. Knight G5 is on the board. What a nice maneuver by Alex. She played knight H7 a couple moves earlier, and now the knight has its moment in the sun. Yeah, this is looking like end times for white. I mean, white cannot stop this knight infiltrating f3. This is unstoppable. The best that white can do is probably give up an exchange for it, but that's not going to help. And actually, maybe rook e3, you shouldn't rush knight f4. Maybe you should get the queen into the attack. Just like ignoring this knight. Forget about the knight. We're going for white's king. And now knight f3 is totally unstoppable and totally winning. This is... No, this is good. This is very good news for Miss Botez. Well done. He played rook e3. It's on the board. He played rook e3. And actually now I would advise Alex to take her time because this move that I suggested initially, knight f3, it's probably not the best. It would still win the game. It's not the best move though. Queen to f4 is super accurate because you're getting the queen into the attack and knight f3 is now an even bigger threat. And you're like, well, why is it an even bigger threat? Because you can recapture on f3 with the queen. And the point of knight f3 isn't just to win the exchange. It's also to checkmate the white king. Actually, this also wins the queen because you could choose between taking the queen or even taking the rook and delivering checkmate, unstoppable checkmate on h1. No, queen f4 is a very findable move. Queen f4 is a very findable move. In fact, I think Alex will play it. Queen f4 is pretty natural to my eyes. Yeah, this is like if Alex wants to make any of the restaurants in the surrounding area before they close, she should play queen f4 because not a lot of things stay open past 9 in this city. Queen f4. Let's see it. Go for the kill. Kava is open till 10, I think. Yeah. There's a Mexican place that's open till midnight, and you basically see this often happens when there's like one restaurant that's open late. You see all the chess players gathered there after the round. There's plenty of good barbecue, but you have to drive. Okay, queen f4. Let's see it, Alex. Queen f4. But again, I wouldn't be shocked if she gave a check on f3. So someone is asking queen f4, can white go queen c3? Man, there's so many winning moves here. I think queen takes g4 is probably winning, but yeah, knight f3 here is probably the simplest. Even bishop f3. I mean, there's like you're basically going to have a menu of options if you can find queen f4. Yeah, bishop f3 is the most accurate, just setting up this mate threat. So before I get too deep into these complications, let's wait for Alex to move because it's not a guarantee that she finds queen f4. Andrea is still thinking. She's down to 35 minutes. Yeah, this is okay. No move yet by Alex. She's got 41 minutes. Plenty of time. Yeah, the reason that bishop f3 there was good is because it cut off the rook. The rook can't move to g3 there. No, knight h3 is bad. Don't go knight h3. That blunders the knight. If you're moving the knight, you should put it on f3 and pick up the exchange. Josh Taylor, there's also Benny Pinello's up until 3. Very little known pizza spot open till 3 a.m. But you got to live here for a couple years to know that. Yeah. I've never braved a Waffle House after hours, though. Okay. F5. On the right, Andrea is thinking. Well, I'm a late night person, so yes. All right. No, I did not prep Andrea and Alex. I think they have plenty of coaches. I'm just a commentator. But thanks for the subs, Red Flag Chess. Um, yeah, we're just basically waiting to see if Alex finds Queen F4. If she does, this game should end in a couple of minutes, actually. If she doesn't, maybe I'll give it like 30 minutes. Like, I don't think the result is really in question. Unless she does something really bad, which is always possible. I'm not saying the game isn't over until it's over. Alex took the knight. Okay. It's probably also fine. Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, she just took an extra. Now she has an extra piece and is still completely winning. So Queen F4 was the killer move. Rook takes A5 is the move you play if you want to cash in your chips and make sure that you're winning. No, I wouldn't resign here with white. I think Alex's opponent is completely in the right to continue fighting. He's probably going to go rook A E1 would be my guess. Now Alex is threatening to play knight F3 and then she'll be a full rook up. Maybe queen E2 can be considered here by white. Yeah, rook takes A5, not the best move, but it does win a piece, so you could do worse. Yes, I keep giving you guys the clock updates. I don't know if you can. I mean, Alex has 40 minutes. Her opponent has 38. Andrea has just moved and has 31 minutes. And Andrea's opponent has 47 minutes. So still not the point at which the time is going to be a big factor. It's probably not going to be a factor at all in Alex's game. But in Andrea's game, definitely it can be. Because a reminder, there is no additional time on move 40. You got 100 minutes for the whole game. You got a 10-second increment, but you don't want to get yourself down like a couple seconds in a middle game. Andrea is dipping a little bit on the clock, but the position is still very complicated. I would not imagine that white is really worse here. Anything can happen. Both kings are kind of weak. Okay. Yeah, Alex's opponent played rook A E1 as we expected. And now I would actually move this rook probably back to A8 just because it's under fire and maybe you can actually play queen F4 here. So queen F4 in this position is a tactical move. It's technically a rook sacrifice, but it's nothing special here. You just play queen takes c4, then you give another check, and then you need to find, maybe then you give another check, and then another check. And here maybe you can just drop your queen back to h5, and black just has way too many threats. But this is like the GM way to play. I don't know if Alex is going to go for this. She might also just say, you know what? Let's get the rook back. Let's cash in my chips and win the game calmly. She played rook a8. Yeah, she just played this move, which is also fine. Many roads lead to Rome here. This is what you should remember. She played rook back to a8, connecting the rooks, making sure that now queen f4 is a huge threat. Knight f3 is also a huge threat. By the way, the reason that she didn't play knight f3 is because of rook takes f3. Second. try opening the window again. Okay. Was I lagging? Okay. Looks like we're good now. Okay. Yeah, looks like we're back. We're back in live. Yeah, Alex has played Queen F4. This one should be wrapping up momentarily. So Rook A8. What happened? Rook A8. Queen D1, Queen F4. And C6. Okay, Alex's opponent is about to resign, I think. If Alex finds Knight F3, it's over. It's over. That might be the kid's dad. I mean, typically the parents are going to be outside the playing hall. It's sometimes they're allowed in the playing hall, sometimes they're not, but oftentimes they're like waiting for the kids in the hotel room. Knight F3, it's over. If Alex plays Knight F3, I think the game ends right here. And we'll have the first positive result of the day. There it is. I heard the sound. She's played it. Knight F3 on the board, and I think we will get a resign. We will get a resign here. Okay, Rook takes F3, but this is a moot point. Yeah, just Bishop takes F3, and it's checkmate. Congrats to Alex. What a game. Actually, really nice game, honestly. Really nice game. By Alex. Very smooth. Very smooth. It was a little bit shaky at the start. Okay, we have this on the board. It was a little bit shaky at the start, but very clean conversion. It was never in doubt. After she found Knight H7, I think it was just a clean sweep. And now it's all down to Andrea. Okay. Alex's opponent is not resigning. He played Bishop E3 here. Alex took the guy. He's still going. Will we get checkmate or will we get resignation? Alex has taken the queen. All right, kiddo. Time to resign. Time to resign. He's still going. He went A5. He's pushing his pass pawns. He's pushing his pass pawns. I think Alex is going to resign. I mean, these pass pawns look like way too much for black to deal with. Yeah, this is now kids sometimes resign, sometimes they don't. Alex went D4. Okay, great. By the way, Andrea's opponent is still thinking, so I'm looking at the other board as well. Alex went D4, hitting the bishop, because she clearly hasn't captured enough pieces. C7. Okay. I think Alex should now proceed to take this bishop. And she did. She took the bishop. White went C3. Day late and $1 short, and now it's checkmate in 3 moves. Can we find check? Yes, mate in 3. I mean, E takes F2 at a minimum. King takes F2, and we will get checkmate on the board. Alex's opponent is playing all the way to the bitter end. All the way to the bitter end. Queen F3 check. And we will get the handshake. Look at your bottom left. Alex will move her rook up to E1. And that'll trigger a handshake. There it is. Mate on the board. And the handshake. Congrats, Alex wins. Nice, smooth win with the black pieces in the first game. Couldn't have asked for a better start. And the kid has some stuff yet to learn. The French strikes again. Alex beats a serious opponent, a talented young player who went off to a good start, but kudos to Alex. She kept her composure, found some great moves. The key moment in the game, I think, was, yeah, knight h7. I think that was a huge move. I mean, white had chances for an advantage earlier, but then finding f6, that was big. Finding this counter resource f6, hitting the knight, that is when the game was actually won. Maybe white could have survived longer, but Alex converted it really nicely and can still make dinner and get some rest before 2 games tomorrow, which leaves us with Andrea, who has a much more difficult task ahead of her on the right side. I don't know if we're going to change the display so that we can focus on the one game. There goes the camera feed because the game is done. Yeah, so we're going to change the camera feed here to the one board view. And I don't know what the procedure is. I've never done this kind of commentary before. I don't know if Alex dials in or not, but I'll be on the lookout for some messages. Let's see. Okay. There it is. So we have the one board view. People are saying she did before. So I'll be on the lookout if Alex wants to dial in. She can, but obviously if she wants some rest, that's also fine. We're going to focus on Andrea's game. It's white to play here. Okay, so let's close this. I'm going to reopen this on my main monitor. And it's currently, what is it? It's white to play. Yeah, white to play after f takes e4. No, it's not my first commentary ever. It's my first. No, I don't even think it's my first time commentating the Botez games. I think it's just been a while. It's just been a while. So, okay, let's put the broadcast here. I'm just rearranging my windows so that I can keep everything open. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely not my first commentary. I think that would be. Andrea, again, she's burning a ton of time. She's down to 28 minutes. She needs to make a decision, and she's trying to figure out how to recapture on e4. Because she has 3 different pieces that can take that pawn. Now, the obvious move is knight takes e4, because it would also hit the d6 pawn, but maybe she wants to take with the bishop and try to aim at the h7 pawn. But right now, she needs to conserve time. And I think she just needs to play knight takes e4. That is the most natural move. Probably objectively, she's worse here. Yeah, this game really turned around. Andrea had chances earlier to maybe even come close to putting black away. Instead, she kind of hesitated with a5 earlier, and she gave black some chances. Got to give credit to Andrea's opponent. She's played really well the last like 5-6 moves, but that doesn't mean anything. The fun part of this game is still ahead. Yes, the board is updated. Actually, wait, no, f takes c4. Sorry, f takes c4. Let me refresh my screen. F takes c4 is on the board. Yeah, I don't know why it's not. Black has just taken this pawn. You should be seeing it momentarily. Yeah, sometimes it takes a second to update. But black has captured the pawn on e4, and Andrea is thinking. I'm trying to make sure that it triggers the. I don't know why it's not updating the move. Do you want f takes c4? And her opponent is out of the board. Let me just double check here. Yeah, I'm trying to refresh and get the board to update, but it's not currently updating. Yeah, no, I'm making moves to see if it triggers the. No, sometimes the chess.com. I mean, Andrea still hasn't moved, so we're not missing anything. But sometimes the chess.com classroom bugs, and by sometimes I mean like most of the time. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Alex has won. Alex has officially won her game. It's down to 1. It's down to Andrea. I'm just trying to get the board to update. I need to do the proverbial turn it off and turn it on again. Andrea's really burning. She's down to almost 20 minutes. Yeah, I don't know why it's not updating. I would say, I mean, I think objectively black is better, but maybe even white's position is easier to play because Andrea's king is safer with the bishop nicely guarding the king. So it's still too early to make any big conclusions here. Huh. Yeah, making moves, but it's not triggering it at all. But still, Andrea is still thinking about how to recapture this pawn, which is slightly concerning. Slightly concerning. Hmm. All right, Andrea, time to move. Time to go. Down to 22 minutes on our clock. Black has 39 minutes for the rest of the game. It's not a lot of time. Yeah, this is a potential time scramble. We get a raid. Thank you, Nemo, for the big raid party of 385. Covering Alex and Andrea's first round at the Carolinas Classic in Charlotte. Alex has already won her game. Now it's down to Andrea, who's getting into some time pressure. She's got a tough position. Let's see if she can pull it off. The time format is 100 minutes for the whole game with a 10-second increment. And Andrea is down to 22 minutes. I'm trying to get the board to update. I'm trying to, but it's just stuck on the same position. But Andrea is stuck on the same position as well. I'm going to close and reopen. Yeah, Vila, if you're watching this, I need your attention. I need your help. Because I'm refreshing and restarting and doing everything, but we need to update the board. Andrea still think it's like she's waiting for us to fix this. But she's down to 20 minutes. I mean, 20 minutes is a long time. That's not time pressure per se. It's just that there's still going to be a lot of difficult decisions to make in the moves ahead. She has still not moved. She's down to 19 and a half minutes. Yeah, she's just frozen. And I think she realizes her position's not great, but she's got to embrace the defensive task. Take the pawn of the knight. Yeah, definitely Grishuk Reborn. Yeah, we need to restart Andrea. Okay, has she moved? She still hasn't moved. 18 and a half minutes. She's got to take the pawn of their knight. This is getting pretty concerning. And she's moved. She's taken with the queen, actually. She's taken with the queen. Promote the maybe promoting the line will help. I don't know. Okay, f takes c4, queen takes c4 is on the board. Okay, queen takes c4 is doesn't look like a horrible move to me, but she's walking into d5. Okay, we have some sort of an update. Wait, let's see if we can. Okay, the board is bugging, but at least we have something. Now let me see. Whoa. Okay, one second. I'm gonna get it in just a moment here. It is, what is this here? Here. I think we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it right. Okay. It should update. Yes, I've updated it. And I think the last move is on the board. Queen takes e4. And Andrea's opponent has played knight to f6, getting her knight over to a nicer square, hitting Andrea's queen. Yeah, white is in some trouble here, but I think Andrea can survive. Great. The board is updated. Yeah, and this is the issue. I think Andrea's opponent senses that she's burning a lot of clock, and so she's putting pressure on her time. Now the queen is attacked. The reason that this has gone a little bit south for Andrea, well, there's two reasons. The first is that she hasn't really managed to get anything started on the king side. This pawn on f4 is now a weakness, and the pawn on a5 is a weakness, and black's knights are now kind of out of their cages. Andrea has given a check on c4, which I think is a really nice move. And now actually black can blunder with d5. D5 here is a blunder because white could play knight takes d5 and the queen on c7 is hanging, so you can't recapture the knight. So Andrea playing the right move, giving the check, earning a tempo. I'm expecting her opponent to pretty quickly move the king to the side. Okay, here we go. Her opponent is standing over the board. I think she's excited, but everything fun is still ahead. Andrea has 17 and a half minutes. Her opponent has 37 and a half. Man, this is tough. Dina is in this tournament. Yeah, d5 is very tempting because you want to play with tempo. You attack the queen. And obviously kids are more prone often to these kinds of blunders because they're more impulsive. Okay. Okay. All right. Here we go. Queen f7. Andrea's opponent playing kind of the old person move, offering the queen trade. Okay. Okay. I think that's pretty I mean, at this point, with 17 minutes on our clock, I think that it's worth going for the trade, worth just taking the queen, playing that endgame, because endgames are often easier to play with little time on your clock. And Andrea has traded queens. So queen f7, queen takes f7 is on the board. Her opponent will likely recapture with the king. And we're going to get a good old-fashioned kind of unbalanced endgame. King takes f7 has been played. Okay. Now, again, the ball is in Andrea's court. And the position is definitely easier for black to play because black is a very clear plan of improvement. She wants to go knight f5, jump in with her knight. D5 is a move that is kind of on the horizon as well for black. For Andrea, this bishop on g2 is not very good. It's kind of staring at this pawn chain. So white has more problems to solve than black. If I were Andrea, I would consider a move like rook to d3, maybe get your rooks into the game. If black does play d5, one drawback of this move is it creates a big hole on c5. Andrea could try to access it with her knight like this. So, yeah, not all is lost here. I mean, the eval bar is showing equality, so objectively, it's probably equal. The biggest concern here, probably the clock time, but it's still not a huge problem. 16 minutes, a lot of time. 16 minutes is still a lot of time. If she gets down to 10 minutes, then we can start panicking. She was adjusting pieces. Yeah, adjusting your piece is normal. If a piece is not central on the square, you can adjust it. It's pretty standard. You can adjust your opponent's pieces, actually. You are allowed to adjust your opponent's pieces if they're obviously off center. If they're not, then it's kind of obnoxious, but it's not technically against the rules, if you're saying adjust. But yeah, you are allowed to adjust your opponent's pieces. Not, like a million times per game, but okay. Andrea is thinking again. It's not easy to find a move here for white. Like I said, I would play rook to d3 or maybe rook f to e1, something neutral that improves your position. Andrea's kind of burning more time. Maybe she's thinking about trading off the knights with knight e4. I don't know about that. I would kind of leave this knight on the board, mostly because if black plays d5, I really do want to be able to access this c5 square. So I would keep the pair of knights on the board. If you don't say adjust and you touch a piece, you have to move it. That's the basic rule. No, I mean, most people don't do stuff just to be obnoxious. I've encountered very little of that in my chess career. So things like putting the pieces sloppily, deliberately to piss off your opponent, most people don't do that. I've never really run into that kind of behavior. But yeah, of course, you can find someone who does anything. How loud do you have to say? Just whisper. Again, like most of the time, you're not going to be like, yeah, you didn't say adjust. Most of the time, it's very, very obvious that someone's trying to adjust a piece because it only happens a few times a game. All right, Andrea, you can kind of tell she's starting to get nervous, but she doesn't know what to do. 13 and a half minutes on her clock. 94. Okay, so she does go for the knight trade, which I think is okay. I don't think it changes the evaluation. I think the position's still equal. And maybe Andrea is saying, okay, I don't have a lot of time. Let me try to simplify the position as much as possible. That's why I think the queen trade actually helps her. With the queens on the board, I would be more scared because then it would be easier to blunder. Now I think it's a simpler position to play quickly. Plus, kids can be bad at endgames, as I said early in the broadcast. Alexandra has won. If you're just joining us, Alex has defeated her first round opponent, the Hooded Menace, a 9-year-old 1800 kid. Very dangerous player, but Alexandra played a great game. And Andrea has white against also 1850 USCF, 1670 FIDE. Okay, so I think we're going to get the knight trade. I don't really think black is going to play. I guess d5 is also a move, but then that welcomes the knight into c5. That would be in Andrea's favor. Okay, so we do get the knight trade. Sorry, knight e4. I'll put that on the board. And black has just taken the knight. Andrea recaptures on e4. And of course, this pawn on h7, it is hanging. That's sort of hanging. But most kids here would... I could see black playing h6 or something like that. Okay, d5. Black plays d5. Pretty mature move. Inviting Andrea to take on h7, but she's not blundering the pawn. If Andrea takes on h7, which actually I would do that, I think black wants to play rook h8, so I'm going to put this on the board, rook h8, because we might see this. The bishop has to move back, and black recaptures the pawn on h3. So we could get this position if Andrea decides to take the pawn. Of course, she doesn't have to take the pawn. And my choice here with white would be probably bishop d3. Now, just leave this pawn for a rainy day because it is a weakness. And try to get your rooks as active as possible. Try to get your rooks as active as possible. This isn't a draw. I mean, this is still... It's still a game. It's still a game. It's still very much a 3-result game. Anything could happen. And so currently we have this position after d5. Another decision for Andrea, which means another time sink. But at some point, she has to start trusting herself. And actually, I think it doesn't really matter whether she takes on h7 or not. Both, like everything here is equal. This is not the game-deciding decision. She also does have this pass pawn on f4, which can be both a strength and a weakness at the same time. Pass pawns are good, but they can also be weak because it's also isolated. So, hard to say what is going to happen here. All of black's queenside pawns are on light squares. So if you can imagine all of the rooks disappearing and Andrea like landing a bishop on c8, that could be really good. But that's very far away. And right now, like that doesn't matter. Thinking almost down to 10 minutes. So it's almost time to start worrying a little bit. Although again, yeah, 10 minutes here is not that little, honestly. I'm just looking up the results from the main tournament. Yeah, Min Lee has won. Looks like no major upsets in the main tournament. Mostly. Yeah, Dina is still playing. And she's winning. Yeah, but you should remember that when you see Black's rating and it says 1672, that's the FIDE rating. And as far as I know, Andrea's opponent is like 1800 USCF American rating, which is probably closer to her strength, like 1850, 1900. The FIDE ratings are often super misleading. This isn't unlike European tournaments where they don't have national ratings. Here it's different. Okay, bishop to d3 has been played. Andrea dropping her bishop back as we expected. And okay, now the ball is back in Black's court. Now the ball is back in Black's court. And one thing that often happens is that when one side has low time, the other side starts playing quickly, even if they're not in time pressure. So you'll often see this with kids who are unable to force themselves to think when their opponent is in time pressure. I was always taught not to do this by my coach, who was always like, if you have time and your opponent doesn't, you should still spend time. You shouldn't try to flag your opponent in like OTB chess. But you can see Andrea's opponent very impatient, just like really tempted to move fast, which could be in Andrea's favor because Black could easily make some impulsive move. Probably Black should play King F6 or Rook E8. It is an easy position to play with Black. There's not a lot of ways that you could make a big mistake here. Definitely Andrea cannot be happy at the way this game has gone. I am. Well, that's where I live, Pack 7, so I didn't have to go very far. Huh, she flipped the table and stormed off. Exactly. That's right. Yeah, some of these kids are way over caffeinated. They're like all over the place. They can't sit still. I miss those times, honestly. Now all I can do is basically sleep. The only thing I can do. But some of these kids are like they had too much Sprite before the game. Um, I wasn't really like that as a kid. I mean, I think all kids are like that to an extent. Yeah, don't let them near the Mountain Dew. Okay. But Black is thinking to Arna's credit, she's not moving that fast. All right, guys, I'm gonna take one more very short break. I'm gonna grab some more water and I'm gonna settle in for the rest of the game. because we're about to get time pressure stage. So give me a minute just to refresh myself, and we got some more exciting endgame action, so don't go anywhere. I will get something with caffeine in it. I'll see if I even have anything like that. King f6, by the way, has been played by black, and Andrea's probably going to go rook e1. I shall be right back. All right, guys. Welcome back. Okay, so what do we have? We have rook de1 by Andrea. And the kid has not sat down, it seems, in like the entire span of the middle game. She's just in a standing position. But the position is still equal. Actually, I quite like the way Andrea is handling this endgame. And it's important for white not to rush the move f5. Actually, Andrea wants to keep aiming at this h7 pawn because you never know when you want to capture it. And I actually think Andrea is fighting for the advantage here. And one important detail is that if black plays the move rook e8, which is really tempting, Um, which, to be clear, has not happened yet. It's Andrea's opponent's move. Andrea has this really nice idea to go rook e5 using the pawn on f4. This is why you don't want to push the pawn. And if black trades rooks, things get really problematic for black because you can't take this pawn. You're going to lose your rook. So you have to drop the king back. Then Andrea would trade rooks. And this is exactly what white wants. Remember, I pointed out these pawns. Now white is able to take on h7 and win a pawn. And these pawns become important. So that decision Andrea made a really long time ago to drive her pawn up to a5, to fix black's pawns on light squares, that could actually pay dividends if black mishandles this position, which maybe she already has. So currently we have this position on the board. It's black to play. Andrea has 8.5 minutes. Her opponent has 28 minutes. Yeah, rook e5 is a very obvious move, though. But this is the kind of thing that kids often miss, these types of moves. Yeah, I will tell you guys to be able to take it a little bit easy on the kids. Just put yourself in their shoes. If you're like 9 or 10 and you're playing a 4-hour game, now there's no excuse for like super obnoxious behavior. I've had a lot of conversations with parents when I was traveling with like the Charlotte chess kids, and I was like, listen, you need to get your kid under control. This is unacceptable. Like your kid can't behave like this. But if it's like minor distracting things, you gotta realize like they're playing for 3-4 hours. It's not easy for if you're 9 or 10 to like keep your cool. Like kids need to move around and stuff. So, I sometimes see these mean comments on like YouTube videos. Like you gotta take it a little bit easier on like the 10-year-olds. I think Andrea's opponent is fine. Standing over the board is a little bit annoying, but it's not like I can guarantee you Andrea is not affected. She is focused on the game. She doesn't give a damn what her opponent is doing. If you're an inveterate chess player, it's less distracting than it seems. Trust me, I've played a lot of OTB chess. Um, so the policy is if your opponent is being super distracting, you can complain to the arbiter or to the TD, the tournament director. But there's no like code, there's no Hammurabi's code of like chess ethics at a tournament. People think like, is this legal or illegal? You can do whatever the heck you want. You can bring in like smelly sashimi to the round. That's not illegal. You can, you can't talk during the game unless you're like offering a draw. You can do a bunch of like stupid crap that's not technically against the rules, but chess is a gentleman's game. So most people abide by like the unwritten rules of not being a jerk at the board. But if you're a kid, they're often not doing these things deliberately to piss off their opponent. They're just like fidgety. Gentleman's game and gentlewoman's game. Okay. Okay. Will we get a move here by black? Huh. Okay. So what should black do here? Um, Black should probably play. I don't know what black should play. Actually, Andrea's slightly better here because she wants to play rook e5 anyway, and then double on the e file. Black's knight is kind of crappy here. Maybe knight e6 black should play, get the knight into the game. But then Andrea could still play rook e5 potentially, and that rook gets really, really springy on the fifth rank. So, um, yeah, I feel like the last couple of moves have been very positive for Andrea, who is down to 8.5 minutes for the rest of the game. 10-second increment, though. Yeah, I don't know her opponent. I don't think she's a local Charlotte kid. If she was a local Charlotte kid, I'd probably know her. Arna Nitun Warakar. I'm not sure what state she's from. She is from, let's see, Florida. Apparently, she's from Florida. Yeah, this is a pretty big tournament, so you're going to see a lot of people from out of state driving up or flying down to play. There's also a big tournament in Vegas that's going on right now with a lot of GMs. There's a lot going on in early June. If you're just joining, Alex has won her game with black. Very nicely played by Alex. Right now, we're watching Andrea. She's got white. She's got 8.5 minutes on her clock right now. Her opponent has 23 minutes. How many players in this tournament? In total, across all sections, it's probably like a couple hundred. I'm not going to Vegas. I'm playing the Bullet Championship next week, so I've got a crazy, crazy week. Um, yes, Alex and Andrea are both in the under 2100 section. Um, so they are in the same section, but all of the sections play in the same room. It's held at the Hilton Hotel in the university area. Yeah, chess is not a spectator sport. Yeah, you can see why it's hard. The hardest is when I'm like commentating a candidates tournament and someone's thinking for 30 minutes and you have to fill in the time. At some point, you start talking about like the tablecloths and the particular shade of white. Do I think Andrea is going to offer a draw? I don't think so. I feel like I wouldn't offer a draw here with white. I think white is playing for the advantage. Um, but do I have a distracting tablecloth story? I did have a. There was a tournament I played. There was a tournament I played, um, where like the tablecloth slid off the big table and all of the boards, all of the pieces like scattered around the floor. They were plastic pieces, so we had to spend like 30 minutes reconstructing the positions based on the score sheets. That did happen once. I think someone bumped like one side of the table and all hell broke loose. So that is my one tablecloth story. A long time ago. Cleveland Open. Yeah, I didn't know the Cleveland Open is happening. The game in progress is Oh, I mean, we paused the clocks. One other time, the fire alarm in the hotel sounded during the games. That actually happened more than once. This was in Philadelphia, and again, you just pause the games, you pause the clock, and then you resume the games whenever you're ready. What would I play here with black? I don't know. I'm probably 96, but no, you can tell that Andrea's opponent is suddenly like, wait a second. I don't know what the heck to do because Rook E5 is essentially pre-movable. That's like Andrea's move against everything is Rook E5 and then double the rooks, get the rooks active. And this bishop is currently kind of dominating the knight. Maybe black should consider knight F5, but then white would trade and infiltrate the 7th rank. So it's pretty encouraging here. And if this gets into a time scramble, I think Andrea is the favorite. She's the more experienced time scrambler. I'm very optimistic here. Okay, I think black is, yeah, black has played rook f to e8. So rook f to e8 is an attempt, I think, to get the rook off of the f file. Now, can Andrea still play rook e5? I think she can, and I think she should. Maybe she should. So rook e5 is still possible because here, yeah, black can technically take twice on e5. So the difference is that if black would have put the other rook on e8, then after the trade, white is also able to swap this other pair of rooks. So this is what Andrea's opponent is trying to avoid. But Andrea could still play rook e5. And if black now takes twice, then the other rook gets into f7, and black starts dropping a bunch of these pawns. And this would be pretty... Okay, eval bar is still showing equal, but I like Andrea's chances here. But Andrea moved quickly, and she did not go rook e5. She played a neutral move. She played rook e2, which is fine. Sorry, king g2. Get the king into the game. It is the end game. That's what you're supposed to do. So I don't mind Andrea playing king g2 because she played quickly. And let's not forget, black is down now under 20 minutes. So one more of these long things by Andrea's opponent, and the time situation is going to equalize, which is really, really good. That's actually more important than, playing the super accurate move, I think. Okay, looks like we're about to get a move. Knight f5, knight e6 is my guess is black is about to move her knight. Yeah, also knight h7 is saying. That's a good observation by people. So Andrea is controlling the h3 pawn, which is actually a really nice, subtle idea. And now she does want to take this pawn on h7 because then if black plays rook h8, white just drops the bishop back and the h3 pawn is protected. So nice little move by Andrea. Knight f5 would be my choice here with black. Just get the knight into the game. And unfortunately, then if Andrea trades on f5, that rook endgame does not look that great. Okay, h6, also very decent move by black, defending the pawn. I think Andrea is going to get her king further into the game with king f3. Rook e5, again, is possible here. But I feel like Andrea is trying to get her king into the action. Yeah, I would not trade the rooks here with white. I mean, I would not give up the e-file. There's no reason to rush that move. I mean, the rook trade isn't going anywhere. Again, my choice would be probably rook e5 or king f3. Andrea now down to 7 minutes. So let's see. King f2 also is a move. Actually, king f2 might be more accurate because the problem with the playing king f3 is that you're potentially walking into some knight checks. Like you're allowing black to give you some annoying knight checks. And when you're in time pressure and you're facing a knight, it's so easy to miss a fork. Everybody does that. So that's the one thing Andrea has to watch out for is like a wild knight giving a fork like on e3. There is no time addition on move 40. We're currently on move 29 only, but it doesn't matter because this is the time Andrea has for the rest of her game. She has 6.5 minutes, 10-second increment. Yes, but that is for the rest of the game. Yeah, this will be tough. Okay, 6 minutes now for Andrea. Time starts running a lot faster when you don't have a lot of it. You've got an hour and 20 minutes. It seems like you have forever. And you've got 5 minutes. It's like before you know it, you have 3 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, Andrea is trying to find like the philosopher's stone here, but she just has to make a move. And there's a bunch of moves that are approximately the same. King f3, king f2. So some positions, people don't realize this. The key is just to move it. And you have like 4 or 5 moves that are going to keep the approximate evaluation. Maybe even rook g1 here is interesting. Trying to eventually get the rook into g6. Because whenever a pawn is moved, first thing I do is ask, okay, what squares are now accessible to my pieces? So I'm looking at this square on g6 and would be very nice to land a rook on that square one day, which is not so far from reality if you go rook g1. Also, if all of the rooks come off, that's an important question to ask. If black trades all of the rooks, I think white benefits from that because then black's pawns become a major liability. Alex in the chat. Congrats, Alex. Well done. Hope you got some food and some rest. That was an excellent game. But now we're getting nervous together. Andrea is under 5 minutes. She's down to 440. Her opponent at 18 minutes, 50 seconds. She's sitting down now. No, this is live. We're watching live. It's 10 p.m. now in Charlotte at the Hilton Hotel. Andrea is deep in thought, trying to unearth the intricacies of this endgame, but TikTok goes the clock. Gotta go, gotta go, gotta go. The issue is you never know. When you're down to your last couple seconds and you got to make 30 more moves in the game, all it takes is one blunder, one oversight. You don't have time to calculate. So your opponent makes an unexpected move and suddenly you panic. That's how so many games are decided by time pressure. It's because you're not able to react to an unpredictable move by your opponent. All right, Andrea still thinking she's under 4 minutes now, 3.5. But again, I don't want to overemphasize this. It's an endgame. It's an easy position for white to play. Andrea should not lose this if she can avoid blundering. But king f3, king f2, do something. Rook e5, right? Rook e5 was my initial suggestion, but that is a pawn sack. That's a very advanced move, rook e5, because then Andrea would have to calculate. Maybe that's what she's doing. Maybe she's trying to calculate that line. That would explain the long think. She's now at 3 minutes. And king f3. So she's defaulted to what I think is probably the best move in the position. King f3 has been played. And now her opponent is very likely to move her knight either to e6 or to f5. And we're not going to have to wait long because her opponent is trying to press on her clock. Knight f5. Yeah, knight f5 has been played. That's a good move by black, and I would not trade. If I were Andrea, my instinct is not to trade, but I'm not totally sure. My instinct here with white is probably to play a move like c3. Now, black is not really threatening to give a check on d4. That's an innocuous check. So maybe you go like rook g1 and pass the turn, maybe b4. Andrea has gone c3. So she is trying to kind of restrict this knight, but potentially she's opening the door for a breakthrough with d4. Although that's not a dangerous move just yet. Okay, c3 has been played. Black to play. Andrea at 3 minutes. Black's at 18 minutes. c3 is a good move. That's a measured move. That's a calm move. My guess is that black will drop her knight back to d6. That would be what I would play with black. But then Andrea could go rook g1. There are two open files on the board. One is the e file, the other is the g file. And if white could activate the other rook down the g file, that could cause some problems for black. So I'm pretty sure Andrea still has to record her moves. I'm actually not sure what the current rules are. The rules on this have changed a couple times. The way I was taught is if there is an increment, you have to record your moves the entire game. If there's no increment, you can basically stop recording when there's 5 minutes on your clock. But it doesn't matter. Recording the move doesn't take any time. c5 by Andrea's opponent, advancing her pawns. Yeah, so far black is playing this very well. c5 is a good move. Okay. Apparently, Andrea does not have to record the moves with a 10-second increment. Apparently, if it's 30-second increment, you have to record. Okay, anyways, rook g1 now would be my inclination. The thing is, if Andrea panics, then she's probably going to take this knight, trying to simplify the game. And maybe that's what she should do at this point with 2.5 minutes. Maybe she just bails out. Take the knight, take the rook, and then put the other rook on d1. Because when black played c5, now the d5 pawn is a little bit tender. So you can try to attack it, but you can't attack it straight away. You can't go like rook d1 here, because then you would be walking right into a knight fork. Andrea at 2 minutes. 2 minutes for the rest of the game. Uh-oh. No, you do not go king g4 and try to hit black's knight, because then again there's a fork on e3. That is the big square that you want to watch out for, is the e3 square. Now, Andrea might not realize that there's no time addition on the 40th move. Is that what you're referring to, Alex? Or are you referring to recording the moves? Because I really hope it's the latter, not the former. She does know that there are no time addition on move 40. Now, it's move 32. So even if Andrea thinks there is a time addition on move 40, she still has to make 8 moves. The problem is there isn't. She's down to a minute. Now, the key is not to panic and then do something really dumb because you feel like your time is running out. Maybe just take the knight on f5, bail it out, trying to make a draw. My choice here in time pressure would be to play bishop takes f5 and then trade the rooks and then harass the d5 pawn with rook d1. But let's wait. We're going to get a move right now. Andrea's under a minute. Hesitating there. She was about to move. Ugh. She does take on f5. Good call. Great call by Andrea. That is a big move. Bishop takes f5. And she's gone rook takes c8. So she's going precisely for the best line. And she actually could be playing for a win here. The rooks have been traded. And now if she finds rook to d1, that's a really troublesome move for black. The move rook to d1. And what's happening there? Did she just give a pen to her opponent? Okay, so there's a pen issue. Black has taken on e8. No, her opponent still hasn't actually recaptured that rook, but she will. Okay, now rook takes c8 is played. That gave Andrea like a couple extra seconds to think about her next move, which should be rook to d1. Which should be rook to d1. And the problem for black after rook d1 is that you might have to, and Andrea has found it, if black goes rook to d8, then Andrea could shift her rook to e1 and try to get this rook up to e5. Again, that e5 square has been big for a long time. But this is a really, really nice sequence. This makes white's task a lot easier. Andrea should not lose this. If she stays alert, even with 1 minute on her clock, she should be able to at least make a draw here. At least. And if her opponent makes an impulsive move, it's easy for black to blunder. Like king e6 here would allow a pawn endgame, which is probably winning for white. I think a draw is probably the likeliest result, but man, I like Andrea's winning chances, honestly. Okay, rook to d8, I think, is forced here. I don't see any other moves. d4 just blunders a pawn. Yeah, rook to d8 has been played. And Andrea instantly finds rook e1, another star move, getting to the open file, threatening this check. And Andrea's opponent, I think, might go d4 here. This is what concerns me slightly, because it's possible for white to accidentally let this pawn slip through the cracks. So what Andrea should be doing right now on her turn is thinking up a response to d4. And I'm trying to think up a response to d4. I don't know. Probably if black plays d4 here, white should give a check and then trade on d4 and then walk the king back, right? The worst thing to do for white if black plays d4, I'm going to put this on the board, but black hasn't made a move yet. Do not take on c5. Here, white actually loses the game because the pawn slips through and you're not able to stop it with your king or your rook. So in this position, Andrea would probably have to trade and then blockade the pawn with her king e2. But this is easy for me to say. With a minute on the clock, it's easy to get confused. Apparently, the best move is c4 here, but that's insanely hard to find because this just lets the pawn through, and then you have this crazy idea, rook d5. But that's not going to be found, even by Magnus. So let's rewind. Let's go to the live position, which is move 35 after rook e1. Andrea's opponent is about to move. And my prediction would be d4. Here we go. And she's played it. She's gone d4. d4 is on the board. Okay, now the big moment for Andrea. I think she's going to give the check on e5. She could also start by trading on d4. c4 is not human. I mean, Andrea has found those types of moves before, but she has taken on d4. Yeah, she's made the human move, which I think anybody would make in her shoes. Now, black is going to recapture with a pawn. Then my guess is we're going to see the check on e5, and Andrea is going to blockade the pawn with her king. And actually, I still think white is in the driver's seat there, but it's heading toward a draw. Okay, so takes, check, king f6 is on the board. Andrea immediately moves her king back to e2, just as we predicted. Nicely done. She's also gained some time on her clock. And now black actually still has to be very careful. I've seen these endgames go crazy. Like, it looks like a dead draw, but you never know what's going to happen. These rook endgames can get wild. Black, I think, is going to give a check and then slide the rook up to d4. That, at least, would be my instinct. Yeah, we might get a draw here. d3 is on the board. King to d2 by Andrea, and rook to d4, I think, is coming up next. Okay, black is thinking after king d2. Still no move by black here. Yeah, rook to d4 is very, very tempting because it hits the pawn on f4. And yeah, it's on the board. Rook to d4 has been played. Now, Andrea should get that rook out of the way. Andrea should get the rook out of e5 because black is threatening to take on f4, and then the rook would be hanging. So you want to move the rook out of the way first so that, well, but then Andrea could lose the pawn. So this could get dangerous for both sides. Rook to c5 is not the easiest move to find with a minute on your clock. The reason rook to c5, actually rook to h5 could also be a good choice, hitting the h-pawn. But it should be a draw. Both sides should start taking each other's pawns, but you never know. Okay, Andrea has made a move. Rook h5, king g6, rook e5, rook takes f4 is on the board. It's Andrea's move. King takes d3 has been played. Sorry, the moves coming in bunches for me. I'm making the moves as fast as I see them, but they don't come in immediately. Now it's black to play. Okay, black to move. And what is going on in this position? So, first of all, a lot of you might be noticing this check on f3, rook f3 check. And then Andrea could drop her rook back, but I wouldn't go into that pawn endgame. I would actually give the pawn on h3 up. The way that white could win this game, I'm not saying it's winning for white. I'm saying, how could I see this going wrong for black? Is I could see black going rook f3 and then grabbing this pawn. And then I could see Andrea going after the b7 pawn. And if she can capture the b7 pawn, the a6 pawn will fall after that. So white's king is actually really well placed. And then you could get like a 2-on-0 on the queen side. So I would not. I actually am not convinced this is going to be a draw. I think Andrea has some winning chances here. But she does have a minute and 24 seconds. Her opponent's still over 10 minutes on her clock. Not going to be easy at all. Obviously, white could lose this as well. You could lose any position with a minute on your clock. Rage. Yeah, it's a 10-second increment. So 10 seconds added after you press the clock, after you make your move. But that's for the rest of the game. So there's no time addition. They're past move 40. Okay, now rook f3 check is very tempting. If black wants to make a draw cleanly, then probably you should play a move like king f6 just to prevent rook e7. No, but black is not 1700. Andrea's opponent is like clearly 1850, 1900 strength. That is her USCF rating, so it's not I'm not surprised she's playing well, but okay, rook f3, rook e3. Andrea instantly dropping her rook back, offering the trade, which should be a draw. Andrea's opponent went back to f5, so she didn't. The pawn in game was drawn, but it was a little bit scary for white. Okay, b4, good move. Andrea advancing her pawn, protecting a5. Okay, okay. But okay, this is still very complicated. King g5 by black. Okay, so now if Andrea goes rook e7, black wants to slide the rook to b5. Really nice endgame skill by the kid. Well done. Now, Andrea can draw this a million different ways. Like, white is not really risking. I would go rook e7 here and then defend the b pawn with my king and then drop the rook back to e3. So this could end up as some sort of a fortress where neither side is able to really do anything meaningful. Andrea went king d4, which is fine. Which is fine. Black will probably go king h4. Honestly, it's scary for both sides, and it's hard to figure this out. Yeah, black is hesitating, but I think king h4 is on the cards here. King h4 on the board. Okay, now Andrea could just sit. She could just go king. I mean, she is sitting, unlike her opponent, but king c4, sit proverbially means just do nothing, like king c4, king back to d4, and wait for black to hopefully do something bad. So the way that this would end in a draw is if like black starts to shuffle her rook and Andrea shuffles her king, then you just basically repeat moves. 50 seconds for Andrea here. She's gone rook b3. Okay, that's not what I was expecting, but it doesn't ruin anything. Now, one interesting thing to explore here is if black tries to trade rooks like this, rook g5, rook g3, who wins in the pawn race? That's where you need that extra time on your clock to be able to calculate stuff like that. Now, the question is, how is Andrea's opponent approaching this position? Is she playing for a win? Is she just trying to make a draw? If black is just trying to make a draw, black should just go rook b5 and just sit. You know, rook b5, she could play h5, advance her pawn. So right now, the eval is equal. It should be a draw unless one side makes a big mistake. Black is at 10 minutes right now. 10 minutes on the nose. Andrea at 59 seconds. So she's been at around a minute for a while, which is good. She's kept that additional cushion. H5 played. I think king c4 we will see by Andrea, or she will just move her rook elsewhere on the third rank. Yeah, king e4. Okay. Still keeping the balance. Although it's a little bit worrisome. If black gets her rook to g3, this is what worries me. Then it's unpleasant if white's king is too far away from black's pawns. But if black plays rook g5, Andrea can keep pursuing the rook, king f4, which would not allow rook g3. Yeah, rook g5 played. Uh-oh. Now there's a big moment. Andrea has to keep her composure. She actually could also go rook c3, but she has gone king f4. Eval bar didn't like it, though. Not okay. Rook b5 maybe is annoying, and then b6. Ooh. Okay, king f4 played. Now black has this very nasty little idea to go rook b5 and then to start playing actually on the queen side with b6. And she's gone rook b5. Andrea's opponent playing like Magnus Carlsen here, but the eval bar is still showing equality. I'm worried about this move b6. No, but that's still a draw. He takes b6. Andrea should just shuffle her king. Just go king e4 and keep your composure. King e4. And she's done it. So it's possible that her opponent just goes back to g5 and we get a repetition here. It's possible. Andrea's opponent is thinking the move that worried me initially was b6 and then trade on b6 and then try to play a5. But let's cross that bridge if we get there. Let's wait for black's move. Yeah, b6 is what I would do if I was trying to win this with black, and it's obviously still a draw. Again, don't think that white is losing. I'm just trying to find ways to make it tough in time pressure. Yeah, rook to g5 is the repetition. 9 minutes for black. Andrea still at a minute. King back to g5. Okay, so clearly Andrea's opponent is trying to keep some chances alive. Okay, rook g3 check. Good move. Inviting the repetition. Inviting the repetition. And black goes back to f6. The party continues. So Andrea's opponent is playing for a win. She's essentially declined the implicit draw offer. She could have gone back to h4. Now Andrea has to go back to b3 to keep this pawn protected. But I'm not really sure what black is doing here. I mean, moving the king all the way back to f6 is not a serious winning attempt. Andrea can continue to sit, to shuffle her king. This is not a panic-inducing kind of sequence. And a new score sheet because they're about to reach move 60. No, that's not a draw. They're just, I think, getting a new score sheet. Now, if there was a draw, you would see a handshake and you would see the clocks being stopped. So they're still going. King to e6. Now, Andrea will play king to d4, I think. White could even play h4. There's nothing wrong with that either. Yeah, this is basically a dead draw, barring some crazy thing happening. But I've seen much crazier things in my chess playing and commentating career. You never know. 30 seconds for Andrea. She does go h4. Well done. Nice clinical move, stopping black's king from going back to h4. I think the gates are shut. And now it should just be a clean repetition, like rook e5 and rook f5. King to d6. Okay, I mean, rook d3 check is fine. King to d4 is fine. The only thing that Andrea should avoid is to go to f4, is that would allow black's king to get into the queen side, and then the pawns would get weak. Check by Andrea. Check on d3. King c6. So black's king has gone all the way from the east coast to the west coast. Not really sure what she wants here. Rook to d4, actually, I would play. Okay, rook c3 by Andrea, forcing the king back to the d file. And I think we might get a result very soon because neither side really has anything that they can fight for here. It's all locked up. Andrea gives another check. She is repeating the position. But then again, her opponent was the one who declined the draw earlier, so she might go back to e6 and just keep trying. Yeah, that's what she's doing. She's just trying anything she can. But Andrea can go up to d4. She can go back to b3. She goes back to b3. The only other thing that black can do is b6, and she has played b6. Andrea's opponent trying everything. Andrea has to take on b6. But this version of b6 is much less scary than that older version of b6 because black's king is a lot worse, and Andrea should just slide her king to d4. And guess what? If black gets too excited and plays a5, that's actually potentially a blunder. So Andrea should just go king d4. Keep this king in the vicinity of your queenside pawn. Black's idea is to play a5 here. Yeah, and Andrea, very nice defensive technique in the endgame so far. King to d4 on the board. Yeah, a5 here. White can go b5, and actually it gets dicey for black. So if black wants to lose, then she should play a5, because then Andrea would push b5 and then get the king to c5. Remember that when I say blunder, I don't necessarily mean it hangs something. It could also just be a blunder because it allows some really nasty continuation. So don't immediately think, oh, it blunders a rook or something. King to f5. Black's king still bobbing for apples, trying to get to g4. Okay, now what does Andrea do? Probably king to c5 she should play. Hit the rook, and she's done it. King to c5, well done. But now black is going to give a check. And then she's going to go king g4. Ugh. Uh-oh. And white might drop a pawn. Oh my gosh. This is going to get tough to defend for Andrea. She has to find a key resource. Andrea has to go back to c4, and she has to find rook d3, rook a6. So she goes back to c4. Black is going to go king g4. Andrea has to find rook d3. If she goes rook a3, black goes back to b6, and she's gone rook a3, and that's a bad sign. Rook to b6 is going to happen. Andrea had to find rook d3, rook d6. That would have forced a draw. Now, okay, it's still a draw, but Andrea might lose that h-pawn. And if she loses the h-pawn, it's going to get tough. King to c5, okay. But now the rook is going to move along the 6th. Rook f6. You got to take your hat off to her opponent. She is playing really, really incredible attempts to win this endgame. And now Andrea's losing the h-pawn. She has a rook a4. She has rook a4. She has rook a4. That is a defensive resource, but she might not find it with 20 seconds. Like rook a4 would set up the discover check against black's king. She has to find it, though. Now it's an only move. Rook a4. Find it. Come on, rook a4. Can she find it? Will she avoid panicking? She's gone b5. She's gone b5, and that is bad. Now she's losing. She's blundered the pawn. Rook f5 check. She had to find this really tough move, rook a4, and still that would have kept a draw. Wait a second. That's sad. Rook a4. But that was tough. I mean, I didn't see that at first. Yeah, her opponent just not budging. Rook f5 check. That's not good. Not totally over. I mean, get the king back to d4. Try to start giving some checks. But again, the clock was the deciding factor. I mean, Andrea just has to avoid. I can just see from this one game, her biggest problem is her time management. It's a complete killer. You can't leave yourself with 10 minutes for a complicated endgame because you're hamstringing your chances. A, B, king e4. And okay, the fight continues. It's not over. Remember, it's a rook endgame. All it takes is one blunder. Okay, so now black is winning because black is up a pawn, and she will likely win another pawn. Yeah, rook c5. Okay, that's a good move by black, but maybe not the best move. Yeah, if I were Andrea, I would probably go rook a1, try to give side checks to the black king. Hope for something. Hope for a pawn blunder. Just going rook b3. Yeah, well, black is winning. King takes h4. It's 2 extra pawns. And a pretty easy conversion. You're just like pushing both of them. Yeah, king f4. Okay. Yeah, but rook c4 and b4. I'm trying to find some trick here. Some way to lure black into a tempting move that doesn't win. But right now, it's pretty clear cut. You're just pushing your pawns, and Andrea has to avoid the rook trade. The rook trade ends the game immediately. So king f3, b4, and black is going to be threatening to trade rooks. At this point, you're looking for stalemate tricks. The one glimmer of hope is that black is playing really fast. So Andrea should be on alert for some stalemate trick, some crazy blunder, but it's looking pretty grim. King g2. Now black should just move her king to g4 and just potentially even get the king to the other side of the board. But this is not a guarantee that she knows this plan or that she finds the right plan here. 7 minutes on the clock for black. If she had 1 minute, maybe there would have been a chance. King g5. Yeah. Well played. King h2. But now black's king just heads over to the other side of the board. King h4. Okay, yeah, she pushes the pawn. King g2. Andrea sitting. I mean, like I said, she's not 1700. She's her American rating, which is more indicative of her strength, is like 1850, and she's probably underrated. So she could be 2000 strength. So what you're seeing is her FIDE rating. She could have played one FIDE tournament. That doesn't tell you anything. Rook B2, okay, still. The thing is, the stalemate traps are like the last resort. H3. Okay, wait a second. Wait a second. H3 was a little bit sloppy. Now, just ignore the eval bar. The eval bar is going to go up and down because it's at a low depth. Black is winning, but Black has to play King F3 here. If Black goes King F3, it's essentially over. If Arna goes like King H4 and tries to keep both of her extra pawns, okay, then maybe there's hope for a miracle. Unfortunately, King F3 is a very obvious move. King F3, King E3, King D3. Just walk the king to the other side and then promote the B pawn. It's a little bit too easy, too obvious, but Andrea's 36 seconds, but that's not even the big problem anymore. The problem is that the winning strategy is too straightforward. It's possible to screw up any position. Trust me, I am the world's leading specialist in screwing up any position. It is possible to screw up any position, but in a classical game, the chances that something insane happens is greatly diminished. But not all the way down to 0. So Arna is thinking, and she plays King H4, so she's okay, which is also winning. The problem is everything is winning here. But Andrea should just sit. King H1, just sit and wait for Black to. Okay, Rook B3. Rook B3 would be my move here for Andrea. Rook B3. And she's played it. Good job. Still hoping. Still hoping. Now, Black actually has to go back to G4. King H4 was wrong, which shows that Arna is not confident. She doesn't realize that the correct plan is actually to give up the H pawn and get the king to the other side of the board. She gives a check. Andrea drops back. And by the way, if Black loses the B pawn, then it's a draw. So Black has to keep this B pawn alive. I don't know what Arna is doing, but she's going to have to go back to C4. And once you start hesitating like this, again, the issue is Black can just stumble around forever until she finds the right plan. And eventually she's going to stumble on it. But we're still hoping. Arna not showing confidence in the final stage of the conversion here, which is also the hardest stage. It's that last push. Andrea doing a great job of holding on for dear life. Yeah, but Rook C4 is the only move here. I mean, you're not going to give up the B pawn. That's just crazy. And that's what makes this depressing for Andrea, is that Black, there isn't anything tempting the Black could do which would give up the win. You just kind of have to go for the correct option, but we'll see. 5 minutes for Black now, by the way. So Black doesn't have infinite time. Black is down to 5 minutes, and you know how kids are. They can get nervous, like really nervous when they're on low time. She's gone Rook C4. Andrea should just instantly King H2. And Rook. Okay, no move yet by Black. Again, the winning move here, just King G4, King F4, etc. And she's gone Rook G4. She's gone Rook G4. And Andrea just takes H3, which actually probably isn't the right move. But King G5, and wait a second. Andrea can now try to... Maybe Rook H. No, Rook H8 gives up the Rook exchange. Rook F3 maybe, or Rook D3. Now, this is still going to be very hard for Andrea to hold. But she's got some chances now. No, this is still... I mean, I don't forget, just ignore the eval bar. Trust me, this is a nightmare position for White, even if it's technically some sort of a draw. Rook B3 by Andrea, which is a logical move. She's putting the rook in front of the pawn. Black is going to try to get her king to F5, but now this is like insanely close. I can't believe Andrea has gotten it this close. Black is probably still winning, but Arna is losing her mind here. So king f5, Andrea is going to go king h3, and she's going to say, no, you're not going anywhere past the f file. I'm going to keep myself attached to your rook on the board. Oh my gosh, this is close. Rook e4. That's a bad move. Andrea should just get her king to... Oh no, rook c4. Damn it. The transmission glitched. It showed rook e4. No, she played the correct move. I apologize. No, because she hesitated. She put the rook on the wrong square and then moved it to the right square without releasing it. That's why it glitched. King g2 by Andrea. It's still not over. This is like tempo for tempo action. Black is going to go king e4. Andrea is going to try to get her king to the left side of the board. King to f2. This is actually really, really close now. This would be the save of the century if she can pull this off. King to d4, king to e2. Andrea should play. Get your king. And how does black win this? Wait a second. How does black actually win this? I think the way to win this for black is not easy at all. Black has to go like around the pawn to the other side. I think. I don't know. I don't have the engine on. I'm just guessing along with you. But hey, this is already really hard to figure out. Arna is down to 4 minutes herself. Andrea now has very serious drawing chances. Unfortunately, black did find king c5. But okay, this is still not over. King to d2 and hope for the best. Andrea has gone king to d3. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, but black is back on track. King b5. And we're going to get a Lucina position, which is losing. Andrea just like one tempo short here. If she could squeeze her king to like the b file, it would just be a dead draw. She should try rook b1 here or king to d2, but it's lost. Lost, but I can't believe we're still going. So I'm let's move 84, rook b1. Dude, everyone sucks at rook endgames, myself included. Now, black's basic strategy here is to first of all go like rook c3 check. And then to squeeze the black king to zigzag the black king toward the white rook. Okay, check on c3. Andrea's going to go back. No, she's going to go up to d4. Might as well try this. And now the winning move for black, I think, is king to a4. And she's found it. Yeah, she got the right idea. And sadly for Andrea, her king is cut off along the c file. She gives a check. Now king to b3. One more pitfall for Andrea's opponent. Rook a3 here is a tempting move, but probably not a great move because then Andrea could go to b1. Sadly, yeah, I think she just knows this technique, so it's easier when you know it, and king to b3 is on the board. Rook a8, and now we're going to get a Lucina position, which black still has to demonstrate the right technique in. Andrea is going to try to put her rook behind the pawn, but king to b2 and b3 is winning. Yeah, this might be the last game in the tournament, actually. King b2. Or one of the last games, for sure. Andrea on the ropes here. Rook b8. b3. Again, too easy for black. It's just autopilot at this point. And I think you can tell by the body language. This is sad. I mean, it was a heroic effort at the end there, but it was just too losing. Once Andrea dropped those two pawns, it was just like, yeah, king c2 is probably the fastest, and she's found it. Yeah. One more trick that white can try is to go to the side, like rook h7, b2, and then give like a check on h2, hope for something crazy. And remember, this is I think a 9-round event. Or no, is this I don't know, 7-round, 8? Anyways, it's just round 1. Sometimes your opponent plays well. I think these are the wisest words spoken in chess. Sometimes your opponent plays well. And not every loss, you should just be kind of excoriating yourself. Like sometimes your opponent just finds good moves. This is one of those games. Andrea had a great position out of the opening. She hesitated, spent too much time, played well in the end game initially, and then the time was the deciding factor. I mean, first of all, the game is not over yet. It's not over till the score sheets are signed. And let's wait for her opponent to demonstrate the technique before we make any conclusions. Check, king c4. Unfortunately, I think b2 is the deciding move. Yeah, b2 is winning. And it's, yeah, the endgame technique with some minor exceptions was very well done by Arna. b2, it's over. Rook h2 check, rook d2. The pawn cannot be stopped. Yeah, very sad for Andrea. It's painful to lose a game like this, but it's chess. That's just part of the experience. There's just these games happen. Rook d2, and I think Andrea will resign here. Yeah. It's the moment when you just have to accept that this is not your day. Yes, in a handshake. Sad for Andrea, but got to take your hat off for her opponent. She played a great endgame. She kept putting pressure on Andrea's clock, and ultimately that did her in. There was that one last moment where Andrea had to find rook a4, which is a really tough move. Rook to a4, the lateral defensive move. This would have secured the draw because black is never really able to take this pawn because then white pushes b5 and exposes an attack on black's king. Once she missed that move and blundered the other pawn, it was losing. But the bigger moment earlier in the game, and this is where I really think the seeds were laid, is when Andrea did not go g5. So she has to trust herself, spend less time on the non-essential decisions. But when she started playing with her a-pawn, instead of just sending full send on the king side, this I think would have been the secret sauce. Something like g5 and h4. Yeah, tough game. She got outplayed, but it's the way it goes. Yeah, but anyways, guys, I think it's time for us to wrap up. It's really late here in Charlotte. Painful for Andrea, but congratulations to Alex. It'll be a bittersweet night for the Botez sisters. Alex played a fantastic game in the French. She won her first round game with black. She will have a good pairing in the second round. Andrea will get an easier pairing. But it is what it is. Tournaments are long. First rounds decide absolutely nothing. And I wish a good night of rest for Andrea and a recovery tomorrow. I will not be commentating tomorrow, sadly. I have a bullet brawl and then all sorts of things, but I'll be hanging around the tournament hall, so maybe I'll appear on camera this time, not as a commentator, but as a spectator. Thank you, everybody. It's always a pleasure commentating for the Botez sisters. You guys are an awesome community, always treat me really well. I don't do this often, but I hope you enjoyed my commentary. I really hope to be able to do this again. And best of luck to Andrea and Alex. Thanks to Vila for helping set everything up. Apologies for the technical problems in the beginning. And hope you guys have a nice, restful weekend. Best of luck to Alex and Andrea. And I'm signing off for the night. Thanks, everybody, and goodbye.